Chapter 10:10. No. Chi-Han replied immediately. Ever since you separated the two of them and locked them up here, I have been watching them closely and have never let them leave their rooms. Chu Luiyue paused. Although their rooms are not next to each other, they seem to be quite close to each other? Yes. Chi-Han responded and looked at her strangely. Could it be that master suspects that there is something wrong with this? Chu Luiyue did not say anything. Actually, this was just a guess of hers. Shangguan was not pretending to be crazy. She was really crazy. However, when she came previously, although Shangguan was in extreme pain, she was only in despair and did not show any signs of going crazy. If Shangguan was going to go crazy, she should have gone crazy on the day of her wedding and after losing everything. Now, it was more like she had suffered some kind of strong stimulation. And the culprit? Other than Jiang Yuqing, who she kept talking about, Chu Luiyue really could not think of anyone else. She thought for a moment and turned to walk out. Just as she reached the door, she heard a bang in the room. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly skipped a beat and she turned back to look. Shangguan's head hit the wall beside her, and blood splattered everywhere. Chi-Han immediately rushed over and checked her breathing. Master, she is dead. Chu Luiyue looked at him calmly, but she didn't seem surprised. Look at the wound on her head. Chi-Han nodded and took a closer look. The moment he saw it, his expression changed drastically. Her skull doesn't seem to have been smashed. Although the bloody hole was scary, after careful inspection, Chi-Han found that the wound was neat and tidy. It seems like someone used a knife to cut open her skull. This is it? Chu Luiyue retracted her gaze. She has been a cripple for a long time and has been trapped here for many days. I'm afraid she doesn't even have the strength to walk. How could her skull have been smashed when she hit the wall? You mean, this was premeditated? Chi-Han frowned. However, Huayang Palace had always been heavily guarded. Logically speaking, it was impossible. Chu Luiyue waved his hand. Deal with her. This consort will go out and take a look. Yes. When they reached the courtyard, Chu Luiyue noticed that the leaves on the trees in the courtyard were falling. It was still the end of summer, so it shouldn't be like this. Chu Luiyue walked to the trees and looked at them. It could be seen that these trees were beginning to wither. Moments later, Chu Luiyue summoned the long yuan sword and cut the tree in half. A stream of black liquid suddenly gushed out. Chu Luiyue quickly swung his sword. A gust of wind swept past. That thing splashed onto the ground, and the surrounding grass and leaves quickly withered. Chu Luiyue frowned. The inside of this tree had been hollowed out by something long ago. Man, uproot all these trees. The black cavalry who were in charge of guarding the courtyard quickly came forward. After a while, all the trees in the courtyard were cleared out. Every tree had its core hollowed out, just like the one Chu Luiyue had previously chopped off. The roots of the trees were almost completely black. The roots of these trees were intertwined underground, and it was convenient for them to connect with each other. Chu Luiyue vaguely felt that she seemed to have uncovered a huge mystery. However, there was a thick fog in front of her, and it was extremely difficult to solve it. She thought of something and walked toward the backyard of Huayang Palace. You guys continue to guard here. The rest of you follow this consort. Just as she arrived at the backyard, Chu Luiyue realized that something was wrong. She clearly remembered that when she first came to Huayang Palace as Chu Luiyue, all kinds of flowers and plants were planted here. Even on a snowy day in winter, when the cold wind was bone-chilling, this place was still filled with colorful flowers and vibrant colors. At that time she was secretly puzzled. Shangguan was not someone who liked flowers and plants. It was truly baffling for her to do all this. At that time she had even asked whether it was intentional or not. Chani only said that the hot spring water was used to nourish these flowers, which allowed them to bloom for so long. Chu Luiyue walked closer. At this time these things should have been blooming, but they were already starting to wither. Chu Luiyue stared at the withered leaves and stems as well as the withered petals and said, "Clean up all these flowers and plants as well." The backyard of Huayang Palace was very big, and almost all of it was filled with flowers and plants. Fortunately, the black cavalry had always been very efficient, so they finished it quickly. Chu Luiyue looked carefully. As expected, the roots of these things had already turned black. Dig again. In the evening, the backyard of Huayang Palace was finally completely dug up. The water trough that was used to draw hot spring water had long dried up. Chu Luiyue jumped down and looked around. She found an entrance and an exit here. Other than that, there was also a doorway. The doorway was very deep, and it was obviously a tunnel that led to somewhere else. Chu Luiyue looked in this direction. This direction seemed to be in the same direction as the Imperial Ancestral Hall. Chu Luiyue was about to walk in. Your Majesty. The black cavalry blocked her. At this time, anyone could tell that there was something wrong with this tunnel. How could they let Her Majesty directly take the risk? Qi Han, who had already finished dealing with Shangguan, also rushed back. He was shocked when he saw this scene. Master, why don't I go in and scout for you first? Chu Liwei shook her head. This is the Tianling Palace. What do I have to worry about? Even if it really led to the Imperial Ancestral Hall, it was the Shangguan family's ancestral hall. Who had the right to be impudent? She thought for a moment and chose a few people, including Qi Han, to go with her. Qi Han saw that he could not stop her, so he changed his method. No matter what, he wanted to walk in front. Chu Liwei could not dissuade him, so she let him go. There were a few people at the back who were in charge of bringing up the rear. The group of people walked in just like that. The tunnel was narrow and long, and the surroundings were relatively rough. It could be seen that it had been dug not long ago. Chu Liwei was sure that it had been dug out in the past 2 years. Since it appeared in Huayang Palace, it was obviously Shangguan's work. Of course, Jiang Yuqing might also be involved. Qi Han held a pearl and led the way. From the surroundings, it seemed that Shangguan and the others had not been here many times. But this still stunned the few people who were traveling with them. Who would have thought that there would be such a secret passage under the palace? They were silent along the way. Realizing that this matter might have serious implications, their expressions became more and more serious. The atmosphere was cold. After about a quarter of an hour, a ray of light finally appeared in front of them. We've reached the exit. Qi Han whispered and looked at Chu Liwei. Master, I'll go take a look first. Chu Liwei shook her head. No need. The Imperial Ancestral Hall is in front. Digression, old time. Chapter 10-11. That was the place where she had decided to die in her previous life. No one was more familiar with it than her. There seemed to be a faint smell of burning flames in the air. It was heavy and desolate. Chu Liwei walked forward. After walking for a while, there was a staircase. Beside the staircase, there was a luminous pearl. The light they saw earlier obviously came from this. She continued to move upwards and soon came into contact with a jade board. There was a circular groove on the jade board. Chu Liwei thought for a while and pressed the luminous pearl next to it. It fit perfectly. Click. The jade board slowly moved away. A ray of light seeped in from the gap. Chu Liwei raised her hand to cover her eyes. When the jade board was completely moved away, she jumped. Qi Han and the others quickly followed. After suddenly exiting the dark and narrow tunnel and adapting to the light for a short while, Chu Liwei looked around. With a glance, she was sure that this was the West Hall of the royal family's ancestral hall. Because of the fire 2 years ago, this place had become a dilapidated place. It was full of traces, desolate and silent. This was the first time Chu Liwei had entered this place after her rebirth. She pursed her lips. At that time, she only wanted to die together with Jiang Yuqing and the others. She didn't expect that the fire would burn for so long and directly destroy the entire ancestral hall. So this tunnel really leads directly from Huayang Hall to the royal family's ancestral hall. After Qi Han came out, he stood behind Chu Liwei and looked around. He couldn't help but murmur in a low voice. They must have done this for a purpose, but why? Chu Liwei was also thinking about this question. She lowered her head and carefully examined the jade board. The wear on the edge was clearly visible. This tunnel. Perhaps it had appeared earlier than she had expected. The ancestral hall was an important place for the royal family. Ordinary people couldn't easily get close to it. Why did they take such a big risk to dig such a tunnel? Moreover, there was one more thing that Chu Liwei didn't understand. If they wanted to kill her, they could have done it in many other places. Why did they have to choose the Imperial Ancestral Hall? Chu Liwei paused for a while but did not find any valuable clues. Almost everything here had been burned to the ground in the fire. Moreover, the Imperial Ancestral Hall was an important place. Even if Shangguan came here quietly through the tunnel, she must be extremely careful. After looking around the room for a while, Chu Liwei went out and headed for the main hall. As soon as he stepped out of the door, Chu Liwei discovered that there seemed to be some fresh traces of renovation on the periphery of the West Palace Hall. This was obviously what Shangguan had requested before. However, before the renovation was completed, Shangguan had an accident, so the work here was delayed. Now that he looked at it again, he could not help but sigh. Chu Liwei stood in front of the door for a moment and felt something dripping on his face. She raised her head and saw that the sky had darkened at some point in time. At this moment, there were raindrops falling from the sky. Soon, these raindrops connected into lines like countless silk threads, connecting the heaven and earth together. Chu Luiyue looked forward. The main hall of the Imperial Ancestral Hall, which had been burned down by the fire, looked well preserved from the outside. This was because there was a ward that Taizu had personally set up outside the Imperial Ancestral Hall. Once there was danger, it could be activated. It was a pity that the fire back then had started from inside. From here she could vaguely see some traces. Master. Chi-Han followed her and looked at her with a complicated gaze. He wondered how Her Highness was feeling when she decided to give up her virginity here. Now that she was back and saw this scene, how did she feel? To Her Highness, this was the place where she had experienced the most painful days of her life. If not for the fact that she was here to investigate that strange secret passage, Her Highness would probably not be willing to come here again. Chu Luiyue said, "Guard the corridor. I'll go in and take a look." Chi-Han wanted to follow her in, but looking at her calm and indifferent side profile, he nodded. Yes. Chu Luiyue had never thought that there would be a day when she would come back. Even after she had been reborn, her mind was filled with thoughts of revenge and she had never thought of coming back here. She seemed to have always subconsciously avoided related questions. She did not know if it was because she had once suffered the deepest betrayal here, and experienced the most unforgettable pain. In the past, due to her identity, she could not get close to this place. But now, she had regained her original name and could enter and leave this place at will, but she had never come here once. She did not expect that this time, because of a strange secret passage, she would come back just like this. The rain was getting heavier and heavier, falling on the eaves and corners of the house, making pitter-patter sounds. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath, pushed open the door and walked in. It was as if she had opened a dusty box, and the air was filled with a desolate and old aura. Chu Luiyue looked over. Other than the ancestral tablets placed in the innermost area, which were still intact, the rest had been burned to ashes. She walked over, knelt down in front of the table and respectfully kowtowed 3 times. Back then she had been determined to die, and had almost destroyed the ancestral tablets as well. If that had really been the case, there was nothing she could do about it. A translucent figure appeared beside Chu Luiyue. Was Taizu. He stared at the tablets for a long time, then looked at Chu Luiyue, who was kneeling on the ground and had not gotten up for a long time, and sighed softly. "Girl, you don't have to blame yourself. The ones at fault were Jiang Yuqing and Shengguan Wan. Even if there's a punishment, it should be the 2 of them who bear it. You are innocent. I don't blame you. If these people knew, they wouldn't blame you either." Only then did Chu Luiyue straighten up. Something seemed to be surging in her chest. There were thousands of words in his mind, but in the end he only had one sentence. "Thank you, Taizu." Taizu smiled and touched her head across the void. "You're a good girl. It's a blessing for the Shangguan family to have you." Although he was only a soul now and didn't feel anything from such a touch, Chu Luiyue's heart still softened. She looked around and exhaled softly, as if she wanted to release all the emotions that had been accumulating inside her. "When I go back today, I'll send people to repair the Ancestral Hall. There's no hurry. What's the point of staying in the Ancestral Hall? It's still better to run around with you." Taizu teased. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The trace of grief and guilt from before eased a lot. It was really lucky to be favored by Taizu. "What's that?" Taizu's eyes suddenly fixed on a corner of the table. There was a dark red bloodstain there. Chu Luiyue glanced at it. "That's because I bumped into it back then. That's why." Chu Luiyue was about to explain when she suddenly felt the water droplet in her dantian shake violently. Chapter 10-12. Chu Luiyue's voice came to an abrupt end. After the water droplet swayed for a while, it did not stop. Instead, it began to ripple with a certain rhythm. The force in her body seemed to be affected and began to flow rapidly. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. This water droplet was always motionless most of the time. If it wasn't for special circumstances, it basically wouldn't move at all. Why was it suddenly, "Girl, what's wrong?" Sensing that something was wrong with Chu Luiyue, Taizu asked with concern. Before Chu Luiyue could answer, the water droplet in her dantian quickly transformed into a transparent broken page. It floated quietly, and the 7 lines that symbolized a rank 7 warrior had disappeared. What replaced it was a blood-red rune that suddenly appeared in the middle of the damaged page. Chu Luiyue was very familiar with this thing. Because after her rebirth, she had seen such a blood rune appear in her palm. But now, why did it suddenly appear, as if she had received some kind of guidance? Chu Luiyue stretched out her hand. Just as her fingertips touched the remaining dried blood stain, she saw that the blood stain suddenly came to life. It quickly condensed into a ball and floated up. Then, it landed in Chu Liyue's palm and quickly transformed into an identical rune. At this moment, Chu Liyue's temple suddenly felt a sharp pain. Countless images flashed through her mind. Familiar, unfamiliar. Remembered, unremembered. It was as if something was going to drill out of her mind. Girl? What's wrong with you? Seeing Chu Liyue's appearance, Taizu suddenly became anxious. But Chu Liyue seemed to be unable to hear his shouts at this time. There seemed to be countless voices intertwining in her ears. Among them, only one voice was particularly clear. That was Rong Xiu's voice. He seemed to be saying something to her, but Chu Liyue could no longer hear him clearly. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, Taizu was about to make a move in a hurry, but he saw Chu Liyue's body go limp and fall to the ground. Girl. Taizu hurriedly went over and shouted a few times. Fortunately, Chu Liyue didn't completely faint. Seeing Taizu's nervous appearance, she stood up. Taizu, don't worry, I'm fine. How can you be fine? Just listen to how weak your voice is. Taizu couldn't help but raise his voice. At this time this girl was still holding? I just remember something. Chu Liyue rubbed the space. The heart-wrenching pain gradually dissipated, but the lingering effects were still there. It was truly unbearable. Hearing this, Taizu's SSSS. What did you remember? He vaguely knew that Chu Liyue had lost a part of her extremely important memories, and those memories were obviously related to the soul in the black pyramid in her body. If she remembered, it's still a little messy now. Chu Liyue helplessly laughed bitterly. Just now, many images that she couldn't remember had appeared in her mind. However, most of those images were very blurry and flashed by in a hurry. It was difficult to recall them now, and she could only barely remember a small part. Moreover, in the part of the memories that she could remember, no one appeared. Most of them were blurry scenes. I can't remember right now. It's fine. This kind of thing can't be rushed. Aren't you slowly recovering now? You'll definitely remember everything in the future. Taizu heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that she was fine. In his opinion, Chu Liyue's own life and safety were the most important. As for the rest, they could be considered later. Looking at Chu Liyue's tired face, Taizu's heart ached. His gaze swept across her palm and he wanted to say something but hesitated. Chu Liyue noticed this abnormality. She looked over and then looked at her palm. The blood-colored rune had disappeared at some point, and the remaining bloodstains on the corner of the table had long disappeared. Other than the traces of the broken corner of the table, which recorded everything that had happened in the past, the rest had disappeared. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Liyue had left it behind and that she had seen it with her own eyes, she would have thought that the corner of the table had been like this from the beginning, clean and without a trace of blood. Taizu, do you have something to say? Taizu immediately shook his head. Oh. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment, then smiled faintly. I'm fine now. If you have something to say, please say it. Taizu sighed in his heart. This girl was smart and quick-witted. It really wasn't easy to hide from her. He looked around cautiously, then took a step forward and looked into Chu Liyue's eyes. The blood-colored rune that appeared just now. Why do you have it on you? Chu Liyue's pupils shrank and a glimmer of light flashed across her eyes. You've seen that thing before? Taizu met her gaze and nodded after a while. I've seen it once. Sure enough. Chu Liyue suddenly became spirited. What's the origin of this thing? Taizu shook his head. Tell me first, what's your relationship with this thing? Hearing the unusual seriousness in Taizu's tone, Chu Liyue's heart moved slightly. This blood-colored rune might really have a great origin. I don't know either. Ever since I was reborn, this thing has been with me. Chu Liyue raised her hand as she spoke. At this time, her palm was already white and clean. At that time, it appeared here, but it disappeared very quickly. After that, it almost never appeared again. As for this time, why did the bloodstain on the table have that kind of reaction? I really don't know. She had thought about this question before, but unfortunately, she couldn't think of an answer. After a long time, she stopped thinking about it. In fact, at this time in her dantian, the incomplete page had condensed into the shape of a water droplet. It was as if nothing had happened before. However, after listening to Chu Liyue's explanation, Taizu frowned and didn't speak for a long time. Taizu? Chu Liyue shouted. Taizu looked at her with a complicated gaze and said, I've seen this blood-colored rune once. Moreover, I saw it on the body of a great divine ability. Chu Liyue's eyes widened slightly. A powerful person? What kind of person is that? Taizu shook his head and his gaze was slightly focused, as if he was recalling the scene back then. At that time I had already founded the Tianling dynasty. I only wanted to break through the 9th stage and step into a higher level. Thus, I abdicated the throne and went to the mainland alone to roam the world. In the process I met countless experts. Compared to them, I was really not worth mentioning. Chu Luiyue was secretly shocked. It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful those people were to make Taizu say such things. And it was also at that time that I saw someone. At that time he had also shown the same blood-colored rune. When Shang Guanjing said this, he suddenly paused and looked at Chu Luiyue with a complicated gaze. This thing is actually not an ordinary rune but a totem. Chapter 10:13. I don't know where he came from, but when he showed this blood-colored rune, many people were shocked on the spot. It seemed that his identity was extraordinary. Moreover, he only appeared for a while and left very quickly. I only found out later from other people that it was a totem that symbolized status. Logically speaking, this thing shouldn't have appeared in the Tianling dynasty. But girl, where did this thing on your body come from? Just a few short sentences, but they contained an astonishing amount of confidence. Chu Luiyue reacted for a while. She chewed on these words repeatedly and finally gradually realized what they meant. You mean, this is actually a symbol of someone's status? Taizu nodded and then shook his head. To be precise, it's a symbol of a sect. This was even stranger. Whether it was Chu Luiyue or Shang Guanyu, they shouldn't have anything to do with that place. Moreover, you should have had this blood-colored rune in your body 2 years ago. Otherwise, it wouldn't have left such a mark on this table. Taizu said word by word. With every word he said, Chu Luiyue's heart sank a little. Taizu didn't have to joke about this kind of thing with her. Everything he said must be true. Then this also meant that she had been involved with this thing for a long time. After thinking about it, the most likely thing was that these related things were also related to her lost memories. The two of them fell into silence. The silence spread and the space froze inch by inch. After a long time, Taizu finally asked, Girl, have you been to the world of divine ruins before? The world of divine ruins. The moment she heard these 3 words, Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly trembled. Her expression was startled and her mind was blank. However, something seemed to be surging in her heart. The world of divine ruins? She opened her mouth and murmured in a low voice. When she said these words, the black pyramid suddenly made a kacha sound and a second crack appeared on it. Another glimmer of light shone out from within. Chu Luiyue closed his eyes, his voice trembling slightly. Should have been there. Patter. Rong Xiu's hand slipped and the book in his hand fell to the ground. He frowned and picked up the book. After thinking for a while, he put it back on the shelf. Your Highness, what's wrong? As soon as Umo entered, he saw His Highness standing motionlessly beside the bookshelf, seemingly in a daze. Rong Xiu came back to his senses with an indifferent expression. It's nothing. However, he didn't expect things to progress so quickly. How are the arrangements for the birthday banquet going? Umo felt a little strange. His Highness had never paid much attention to his birthday celebration. In the past, it was mostly just a simple procedure and he would never ask about it. This time, for some reason, His Highness seemed to be very concerned about this matter. It was really a first for him to ask such a question. Your Highness, everything has been arranged for the birthday banquet. The people below are also preparing for it without any delay. Rong Xiu nodded. That's good. The people from the various tribes should be here by now, right? Umo bowed. Yes. The various tribes have already sent news that they have already set off and will arrive in a few days. There are more people this year. Be careful. Rong Xiu lightly reminded, when the time comes, don't spoil the fun. Umo finally couldn't help but look up in surprise and quickly glanced at his master. Fun. How could His Highness say something like that? In the past, only the most distinguished people from the various tribes were qualified to attend the birthday banquet of the Holy Sun. However, because there was a concubine selection this time, there were naturally more people coming. Although Umo wasn't the main person in charge, he knew that every tribe was going all out to compete. It was said that they had all selected the most outstanding women in their tribes to compete for the position of the Holy Sun's princess. When the time comes, the competition would be fierce. Umo felt a headache whenever he thought of that scene. However, he still respectfully responded. Your Highness, please rest assured. He scratched his head and was about to leave, but in the end, he still forced himself to ask. Your Highness, then, what about Madam? From the beginning until now, His Highness had never mentioned it. If Madam knew about this, Umo shuddered. Of course, he wouldn't think that His Highness had fallen in love with someone else. After all, his master even touched the pantheon record for that person. But, what about this matter now? Rong Xiu placed one hand behind his back. His phoenix eyes were deep and his thin lips slightly raised into an extremely faint smile. She will come. The corner of Yu Mo's eyes twitched. Madam is coming? Then wouldn't the concubine selection birthday banquet become a battlefield? Then I will go and receive. No need. Rong Xiu spoke and glanced at Yu Mo indifferently. Let them continue to protect her in secret. As for the rest, I will personally explain to her. Yu Mo was confused, but he didn't dare to ask more. He could only respectfully respond and then leave. After Yu Mo left, Rong Xiu slowly walked to the side of the soft couch. His long body took up most of the soft couch's space. He closed his eyes, his thick eyelashes casting a faint shadow under his eyelids. The bridge of his nose was straight, his lips were moist, and his face was white and translucent like jade. Only his sword-like eyebrows were slightly raised. His voice was low but with a trace of doting. Little thing, you are getting more and more ruthless. Digression. I want to ask what accessories everyone wants the most? Pillows, keychains, mugs, small tables, canvas bags? Everyone can vote in the comment section and decide according to everyone's wishes. Chapter 10:14. The rain was getting heavier. There was a vast expanse between heaven and earth. There was a layer of mist on the ground. Chi Han stared at it for a while, then turned to look at the tightly shut door of the ancestral hall. Master has been in there for a while, but he hasn't come out yet. I wonder how he's doing. Creak. The door opened and a slender and tall figure walked out. Chi Han and the others hurried to greet him. Master. As he approached, Chi Han took a quick glance and saw that Chu Liyue's expression seemed to be a little off. What's wrong with you? Chi Han frowned and a trace of worry grew in his heart. Chu Liyue shook his head. Send someone to guard this place strictly. Without my permission, no one is allowed to come close. Chi Han didn't understand, but he still obeyed. Yes. Also, seal that secret passage. Yes. Chu Liyue looked up at the dark sky and set up a black umbrella. This was left behind by Rong Xiu the last time he came. I'll go to Huayang Palace again. She returned to Huayang Palace this time, of course not for Shangguan who had been cleaned up, but for another person who was also imprisoned here, Jiang Yuqing. Chu Liyue pushed the door open and entered. At a glance he saw Jiang Yuqing sitting there. Hearing the sound, he looked up with a calm expression. From his thin and haggard face, it could be seen that he had been through a lot during this period. It was just that his psychological endurance was extremely strong. At this point he could still look so calm. When he saw the person who came, there was no shock on his face at all, as if he had already expected it. Chu Liyue closed the door and walked forward for a while. The two confronted each other. You killed Shangguan. Chu Liyue went straight to the point. It was not a question, but a statement of affirmation. Jiang Yuqing's expression didn't change. What does her suicide have to do with me? He had stayed here and never left, but he already knew that Shangguan had committed suicide. It was obvious that he was related to this matter. However, although his words were a denial, since he took the initiative to say such things, it seemed that he had no intention of refuting. Jiang Yuqing knew very well. When Shangguan died, Chu Liyue would definitely sense that something was wrong and connect it to him. In that case, there was no point in talking about this matter. I didn't expect you to want her to die even more than I do. Chu Liyue's gaze was calm and sharp as he looked at him. It was like a sharp blade that wanted to cut through his disguise and see through his heart. I don't know if it's because you're kind and don't want her to suffer day after day of torture, or, are you afraid that if she continues to stay it will cause trouble? Jiang Yuqing laughed. He originally had a very handsome appearance, but now he was so thin that he almost didn't look human anymore. When he smiled like this, not only did he lose his previous handsomeness, he looked more like a living skeleton draped in human skin. His eyes were faint and it was very creepy. You're still as smart as before. I can't hide anything from you. This was an admission that he wanted to silence her. You're honest. Chu Liyue's mind raced, but he really didn't understand why Jiang Yuqing had to kill Shangguan. Judging from her previous reaction, she really didn't know a lot of things. She didn't even know that the black runes in her body came from the Black Demon Cave. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, it was basically Jiang Yuqing who was controlling her. At most, she was an abandoned chess piece. It didn't matter whether she existed or not. Jiang Yuqing was so bold. What was he afraid of? Hearing this, Jiang Yuqing smiled again. Chu Liyue asked again. How did you kill her? You always know everything. Why do you need me to tell you? Jiang Yuqing played Tai Chi. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed slightly. I've already ordered people to clean up all the trees and flowers in the backyard of Huayang Palace. Jiang Yuqing's face stiffened for a moment, and the corners of his mouth twitched unnaturally, but he quickly returned to normal. In fact, he had already noticed it before. He just didn't expect her to act so quickly and clean up all these in such a short time. It seems that you rely on these to communicate with the outside world? Chu Liyue questioned. Jiang Yuqing didn't say a word. These little movements couldn't escape her eyes. He already knew. So now, since she directly pointed it out, he didn't have to say anything more. You also instigated Shangguan Wan to do the secret passage to the Imperial Mausoleum in Huayang Palace, right? Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and refused to communicate. Chu Liyue curled her lips coldly. It doesn't matter if you don't want to talk about this. It's not important anyway. However, there is something that I would really like to consult you about. Jiang Yuqing didn't move and didn't respond. Back then you could have chosen many places to kill me. In fact, it would have been much more convenient for you to do it directly in the zither room. But why, in the end, you brought me to the Imperial Ancestral Hall? For what reason did you have to do it there? Chu Liyue's words were incomparably clear, like heavy stones smashing into the empty and deathly silent room. Jiang Yuqing still didn't respond. If it weren't for that weak breath, people would almost think that he was dead. Chu Liyue waited for a while. Seeing that Jiang Yuqing didn't intend to speak, she raised her eyebrows slightly. She had expected that he wouldn't say anything, just as he wouldn't tell her why he chose to betray her back then. It seems that there's no point for me to continue asking. As Chu Liyue spoke, she turned and walked out. When she reached the door, she suddenly stopped and turned back to look at him. You know that I've been to the Divine Ruins world, right? Jiang Yuqing suddenly opened his eyes. His usually indifferent and calm expression finally cracked inch by inch, and his eyes were filled with shock. But when he saw Chu Liyue's, as expected, expression, he suddenly realized something. He frowned and slowly clenched his fists. She hadn't completely remembered it. The sentence was just a test. No wonder. Chu Liyue suddenly felt that a layer of fog in front of her had been lifted. It seems that the person behind you is also from the Divine Ruins world? The veins on Jiang Yuqing's forehead throbbed. He looked away and refused to say anything more. He didn't know why Chu Liyue thought of the Divine Ruins world, but this wasn't a good sign. If she remembered everything, it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. Chu Liyue chuckled. If the person who wants to harm me doesn't want to come, I'll go personally. With that, she pushed open the door and walked out. Just as she took a step, Jiang Yuqing's voice came from behind her. If you go, you'll die without a doubt. Chu Liyue looked back and saw that the corner of Jiang Yuqing's mouth was slowly flowing with black blood. Her pupils shrank, and she immediately raised her hand and waved a scarlet flame. Before Jiang Yuqing could finish speaking, his body suddenly exploded. Bang. Chapter 10:15. Chu Liyue missed. Jiang Yuqing's body was quickly destroyed, leaving behind only a pool of black blood. Something surged in it for a moment before quickly dissipating. When Chu Liyue rushed over, the pool of blood had already dried up and was emitting a strong aura of death. It seems that the other party was prepared and directly extracted Jiang Yuqing's soul, allowing him to escape quickly. Taizu said in a deep voice. She stared at it for a long time, her eyes slightly cold. They really acted quickly. She had just noticed a hint of something, and the other party had attacked without hesitation. From this, it could be seen that the other party was stronger than she had imagined, and they were extremely vigilant. Otherwise, they would definitely not have dealt with Jiang Yuqing so quickly. This clue was cut off again. Girl, don't worry too much. Jiang Yuqing's body was destroyed. Even if there was still a soul left, it would still be a great loss to his vitality. If he couldn't recover and find a suitable body, he would be a lonely ghost for the rest of his life. It's a pity that I couldn't kill him in time. Chu Liyue frowned slightly and muttered in a low voice. Killing him now isn't that important. The most important thing is to find the mastermind behind him. That's the person who really wants to harm you. Chu Liyue exhaled softly and nodded in agreement. Then she asked, Taizu, other than that, what else can you see? The other party's methods are extremely hidden, and it's obvious that his background is extraordinary. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find out immediately. Taizu's voice was solemn. This black blood and that special smell of death should be the key. If we really want to find the other party, the only way, perhaps, is to personally go to the Divine Ruins world. Chu Liyue nodded. Even if Taizu didn't say anything, she would still go. She had a premonition that the memory she lost should be related to the divine ruins world. It's a pity to let him escape just like that. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she directly burned the pool of blood with fire until there was nothing left. Within a day, Sheng Wanwan's body and soul were destroyed, and Jiang Yuqing self-destructed and escaped. The two people who had been imprisoned in the Huayang Hall had disappeared without a trace. When Chu Luiyue returned to her bedroom, it was already night. After washing up, she wanted to rest, but she couldn't fall asleep as she lay on the bed. After tossing and turning for a while, she sat up. In fact, she had gone through a lot today. She was exhausted both mentally and physically. But in the depths of her mind, she couldn't relax no matter what. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and took out another book. It was the strange diary that she had found on the bookshelf. She had a feeling that this book meant a lot to her. Ever since that day, she had carried the book with her everywhere. She carefully flipped through it. She still couldn't understand. When she turned to the last page, she saw the line again. Exsanguinely, Chu Luiyue murmured in a low voice. Is this the calendar of the world of God? After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue put the book back, sat cross-legged, and began to cultivate. After the force in her body ran a few cycles, the waves in her heart gradually calmed down. Early the next morning, Shang Guanyu came to the Zhaoyu Hall. As soon as he saw Chu Luiyue, Shang Guanyu asked directly, "Yue, I heard that there was a commotion in the Huayang Hall yesterday?" Seeing that he seemed to be a little nervous, Chu Luiyue felt strange but still nodded gently. Yes. It was normal for others not to know about such a thing, but Shang Guanyu would definitely know. Chu Luiyue didn't hide anything from him and simply told him everything. So he really has the support of the people of the world of God. After listening, Shang Guanyu's expression was complicated. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows moved slightly. Father, you already know about the world of God? She didn't mention this word just now. Shang Guanyu was also suddenly stunned. As the Tianling Emperor, of course I know. Not only me but most of the emperors of the other dynasties have also heard of it. Previously, considering that you have just ascended the throne and have a lot of things to do, you haven't been able to rest, so I haven't told you. But you seem to have already known? Did Taizu tell you? Chu Luiyue's mind moved. Yes. The day before yesterday, Taizu mentioned a few words to me. Looking at father's expression, it was clear that he didn't know that she had been to the world of God. Therefore she did not mention this point. I see. Shang Guanyu didn't suspect anything. In fact, he didn't say it before because he considered that her strength was still insufficient at that time. Now that she had broken through to the 7th rank and recovered the Tianjing Yuan meridian, he could be more at ease. Now that you have ascended the throne, it's time to tell you. Shang Guanyu sighed softly. His gaze was distant as if he was deep in thought. Chu Luiyue sat at the side and waited quietly. Yue, do you know why Yao Qin, where you were, and our Tianling dynasty are superior? Chu Luiyue thought for a moment, and her eyes suddenly moved. Heaven's canopy? That's right. Shang Guanyu nodded. In heaven's canopy, whether it is the density of the force of heaven and earth or the various resources of heaven and earth, it is much better than outside heaven's canopy. As a result, cultivators in our heaven's canopy are usually much stronger than cultivators outside of heaven's canopy. But in fact, on this continent, in addition to these dynasties, there are many hidden clans. They are the more powerful existences. To us, the world of God is like heaven's canopy to Yao Qin. For people like us, only by becoming a true top powerhouse can we cross this threshold and enter the world of God. Chu Luiyue suddenly asked. Then, what level do you have to reach to be qualified to enter the world of God? Shang Guanyu leaned on the chair and shook his head helplessly with a smile. He stretched out a finger and pointed upwards. Of course, to break through stage 9 and enter the realm of God. Chu Luiyue had actually vaguely guessed this standard before, but when she heard the exact answer, her heart was still stirred up. If it was really according to this standard, then, how did she enter back then? And what exactly did she experience there? In the past, you almost broke through. Father had high hopes for you and thought that it wouldn't take long for you to succeed. I didn't expect. She didn't expect that there would be a sudden change and all her plans would be disrupted. Fortunately, you are back now. Shang Guanyu looked at her lovingly. Cultivate well. When you break through stage 9 and enter the legendary level, you can enter the world of God. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and hid the glimmer in her eyes. Wait until then? She was afraid that she couldn't wait any longer. Digression. Continue at 6 o'clock. I feel that everyone likes pillows and canvas bags the most. Chapter 10:16. Just then an announcement came from outside. Miss Mu from Dragon Teeth Mountain is here. Chu Luiyue looked up and saw that Mu Hongyu had arrived at the door of the hall. Invite her in. Mu Hongyu followed the palace servants into the hall. When she saw Chu Luiyue, an excited smile appeared on her pretty face, and her almond-shaped eyes lit up. Lu, she had just spat out a word when she saw Shangguanyu next to her. Only then did she remember that she was in the imperial palace. She hurriedly stopped talking and curtsied. Mu Hongyu greets your majesty and your majesty. Chu Luiyue waved at her. Hongyu, this is my bedroom. You don't have to stand on ceremony. Come have a seat. Mu Hongyu looked at Shangguanyu nervously. After all, Shangguanyu had been in a high position for many years. Even though he was wearing ordinary clothes, he still had the aura of an emperor that could not be ignored. Although Mu Hongyu was lively, she knew what to do and what not to do in an occasion. Lu Yu could be polite, but she could not be rude. Shangguanyu laughed. Mu Hongyu, right? I've heard a lot about you from you, don't be restrained here. I have something to do, so I won't stay here and disturb you. You can chat. Then he got up and was about to leave. Chu Luiyue smiled. Imperial Father, you should stay here for now. What we're going to talk about next has something to do with you. Oh. Shangguanyu was a little surprised. Seeing that Chu Luiyue did not seem to be joking, he sat down again. Mu Hongyu saw that Shangguanyu was so amiable, and her nervousness eased a lot. Hongyu has a faint yuan body. It's much harder for her to become a martial artist at the 7th level than ordinary cultivators. Therefore this time I plan to bring Hongyu to the Red Moon Desert again and ask a few seniors I know to give me some pointers. Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue were very close. Moreover, the virtual yuan body had not appeared for 1,000 years. It would be a pity if it was wasted. That was why Chu Luiyue was determined to help him to the end. Red Moon Desert? Senior? Shangguanyu was at a loss. Wasn't that place full of danger? If ordinary people went there, they would have a 9 out of 10 chance of survival. Why was you rushing there? Furthermore, he even said that he was acquainted with an elder? Chu Luiyue smiled and nodded. Yes. Previously, it was all thanks to their help that we were able to successfully leave the Red Moon Desert. Out of all the people that Chu Luiyue knew, the few of them were the strongest ones. Other than them, she really couldn't think of anyone else she could ask for help. Moreover, it just so happened that they had sent Shuai to deliver the news, so it would be good to go and take a look. This time Hongyu and I are not sure when we will return. Therefore, there are many things in the Tianling dynasty that I need you to take care of. Of course, Shangguanyu would not object. Don't worry. With me around, you can do whatever you want. Chu Luiyue looked a little apologetic. I wanted to let you have some leisure time, but I didn't expect. In the end, I still have to trouble you. What's so troublesome about that? Shangguanyu looked at her disapprovingly. Moreover, you are my daughter. If I don't help you, who else can I help? Don't worry. Now that I have recovered, nothing will happen to me. Chu Luiyue felt a warmth in her heart. In fact, she came back this time to let her father have a good rest and make up for what he had done before. However, she didn't expect so many things to happen after that. She joked. If I had known, I wouldn't have agreed to your and Taizu's proposal to ascend the throne that day. In the end, you are still the one who is busy with these things. Shangguanyu laughed. Anyway, this position will be yours sooner or later. It's better to be early than late. The Tianling royal family has no descendants in this lifetime. In addition, Shangguanyu had attacked many people. The royal family's descendants were either dead or disabled, or they were still young. Among them, the only one who could shoulder the burden was Chu Luiyue. When do you plan to go? Shangguanyu asked. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu looked at each other. Today. The sun was scorching in the Red Moon Desert. Yellow sand covered the sky as far as the eye could see. The heat waves were rolling and even the air was distorted. A snow-white figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the desert. Following closely behind was a red-tailed phoenix with its wings spread out. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu stood on Dumpling's back, their clothes fluttering in the wind. We'll be there soon, Chu Luiyue said. Mu Hongyu nodded, but her eyes fell on Shuai in front of her from time to time. She seemed to be distracted. This figure. Why does it look so familiar? Hongyao, what are you thinking about? Chu Luiyue had long noticed that Mu Hongyu's state was a little strange. Along the way, she seemed to be a little absent-minded. Nothing, I just feel that this white lion is quite familiar. Mu Hongyu murmured in a low voice. When she saw Shuai rushing towards the desert below, a light suddenly flashed in her mind. Right. This white lion was very similar to the divine beast they had seen in the mystic forest. Shuai. This is Rongxiu's magical beast. Chu Luiyue explained. When they were in the palace, Rongxiu had summoned Shui Shui out. Many people had seen it, so there was no need to deliberately hide it. What? You said it is the divine beast of His Highness Prince Li? Mu Hongyu was shocked. The news of Rongxiu having a divine beast was still a hot topic in the entire West Hill some time ago. Although she didn't pay attention to it deliberately, she had heard about it. She didn't expect it to be. Then, if this was really the one they saw previously, didn't that mean that Rongxiu was actually here at that time? What's wrong? Chu Luiyue saw that her reaction was a little strange and asked. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a moment and was about to speak when she suddenly heard a rustling sound from the desert below. The two of them looked down together. Yellow sand rolled on several undulating sand dunes, creating a huge commotion. Chu Luiyue immediately said, "Seniors, it's me." An androgynous snort seemed to come from afar. "Lass, you still know to come back?" This was Lan Zhao's voice. Although it sounded angry, there was no anger. Instead, there was a trace of joy that he was trying his best to restrain. "Hurry up and come down." Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. She didn't know why, but when she heard this voice again, she actually felt very close. "Hongyu, let's go down." She gently patted Dumpling's head and then jumped. Sigh. Before Mu Hongyu could ask clearly, she saw that she had gone down and could only follow closely behind. The moment Chu Luiyue landed, the yellow sand under her feet moved quickly and sent her forward. It wasn't until he saw the sparkling sapphire-like lake that he finally stopped. Chu Luiyue had just stood still when she heard Diwu Zhang's surprised voice. "Lass, you broke through to become a stage 7 warrior?" Chapter 10:17. Because it was too unexpected, Diwu Zhangzi didn't send a voice transmission to Chu Luiyue like Lan Xiao, so it spread across the desert. Mu Hongyu, who rushed over, heard the voice and immediately looked around vigilantly. "Who is it?" Chu Luiyue smiled comfortingly. "Don't worry, these are the people I mentioned to you before." The one who spoke was Senior Diwu Zhangzi. "Hee little girl, you actually don't remember me?" Elder Diwu Zhangzi laughed. "Seems like you haven't suffered enough from the previous time?" Mu Hongyu was stunned. Then she suddenly recalled something and her eyes widened in shock. "Wow, it was you last time." Whoosh! A cloud of yellow sand suddenly condensed and flew in front of Mu Hongyu. Swoosh! Mu Hongyu's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Other than leaving an extremely light spatial fluctuation, almost no one would notice anything unusual. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered. If she hadn't broken through to become a stage 7 warrior and had sharper senses, she probably wouldn't have been able to detect this small fluctuation. The faint Yuan body was indeed worthy of its reputation. In the next moment, Mu Hongyu appeared on a sand dune 1,000 feet away. "Phew, luckily I dodged it." Mu Hongyu was secretly rejoicing when she realized that the cloud of yellow sand was still floating quietly in the same spot and didn't chase after her at all. She was in a daze and realized that she seemed to have overreacted. "Ah, seems like you've improved during this period of time." Diwu Zhangzi laughed loudly. Poof! That cloud of yellow sand scattered on the ground. Mu Hongyu blushed slightly and realized that he was just teasing her. Chu Luiyue looked at the lake helplessly. "Senior Diwu, you tortured Hongyu badly last time. Please don't make fun of her." Mu Hongyu appeared beside Chu Luiyue in a flash and smiled embarrassedly. "Liu, don't worry. I'm fine. If it wasn't for this senior's guidance, I wouldn't have improved so quickly." Although her face was still a little red, her tone was very sincere and magnanimous. She was indeed grateful for Diwu Zhangzi's help from the bottom of her heart. As she spoke, she solemnly bowed to the other side to express her gratitude. Seeing that Mu Hongyu was in such a good mood, Chu Luiyue was also relieved. Diwu Zhangzi, on the other hand, was a little surprised. Good. This child is worth teaching. To be able to become friends with you, all aspects would not be lacking. Tianjing Yuan Meridian?" At this moment, another familiar voice sounded. "When did you recover?" Although the tone was cold and arrogant, it was a pity that the silver voice was soft and childish. It was not intimidating at all. Following this voice, ripples appeared on the surface of the lake. Chu Luiyue laughed. "Just a few days ago." Dugu Mabao snorted. "That's more like it." After everyone learned that Chu Luiyue had recovered the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, they were either shocked, envious, or in disbelief. In short, there were all kinds of emotions. Only Dugu Mabao did not have such feelings. There was a slight disdain and a full sense of matter-of-fact. It seemed that Chu Luiyue's recovery of the Tianjing Yuan Meridian was normal and barely acceptable. Mu Hongyu secretly stuck her tongue out at Chu Luiyue. Although they didn't see him, just hearing his words was enough to shock them. The Tianjing Yuan meridian was such a rare talent. In the entire Tianling dynasty, there had only been 2 people with it in the past 1,000 years. Countless people in the world were envious of it. And when it came to this senior, it was actually just a little bit. Mu Hongyu now vaguely understood why Chu Liwei said that the seniors here might be able to help her with the faint Yuan body. Chu Liwei did not seem to mind, and his eyes were curved. It was a coincidence, and I was lucky. I recovered when I broke through to become a stage 7 warrior. The corner of Mu Hongyu's eyes twitched fiercely. These people are so perverted. She vaguely felt that if she continued to stay here, her days would not be too good. Although she was already mentally prepared, she realized that she was still too naive until now. Other than the appointment, I came here this time to ask the seniors for a favor. What she was afraid of came true. Just as Mu Hongyu's heart was trembling, Chu Liwei grabbed her hand and pushed it forward. Hongyu has the faint Yuan body, and she's getting closer and closer to becoming a stage 7 warrior. I once read in an ancient book that the divine tribulation of the faint Yuan body is extremely difficult to pass. So, I would like to ask the seniors for help and guidance. I wonder. This small matter is naturally not a problem. Diwu Zhangze agreed immediately. With me here, I guarantee to help her successfully pass the divine tribulation. Chu Liyue's eyes lit up. Are you really willing to help? What's the big deal? The faint Yuan body is a good seedling after all. It would be a pity if it was wasted. Diwu Zhangze couldn't help but sneer as he spoke. Those mediocre people of the Tianling dynasty will only delay her. For the next period of time, you just have to stay here until you pass the divine tribulation. Since he said so, he really intended to help. Thank you, Senior Diwu. Mu Hongyu also hurriedly bowed respectfully. Thank you, Senior Diwu. After finalizing this matter, Chu Liwei breathed a sigh of relief. By the way, may I know why the seniors have asked me to come here? After settling Mu Hongyu, Chu Liwei turned his attention back to this matter. Diwu Zhangze didn't answer immediately. Instead, he seemed to hesitate. I'll let Debao tell you. I'll bring her around to familiarize herself with the environment first. After saying that, he shouted, Brother, Hongyu, come quickly. Mu Hongyu hurriedly replied, That's right. Okay. After speaking, she looked at Chu Liwei hesitantly. Chu Liwei gave her a reassuring look. Just go ahead. Mu Hongyu nodded. A cloud of yellow sand suddenly appeared beside her. It's here again. Mu Hongyu wailed and scurried away instantly. Soon, only Chu Liwei was left here. The sun was scorching hot and there was no wind around. However, ripples appeared on the surface of the lake not far away. Come here. It was Lan Zhao's voice. Chu Liwei followed the voice and walked over. When she reached the lakeside, she subconsciously looked down. There seemed to be dark shadows gathering in the clear lake. Actually, I asked you to come this time because Debao needs your help with something. Lan Zhao's tone was a little strange. Chu Liwei was stunned. Debao wanted her help? These people were all very strong, especially Debao. What did he need her help with? As long as it's within my power, I won't refuse. I wonder, what's the matter? Lan Zhao said lightly. Debao, do you want me to help you or do you want to tell the girl yourself? Dead silence. After a while, Dugu Mabao's extremely awkward voice was heard. I've condensed a divine body and need your power as a primer to awaken it. Chapter 10:18. Divine body? Primer? Chu Liwei was dazed when she heard that. This divine body is, after a cultivator breaks through the stage 9 and enters the godly realm, he can use the force of heaven and earth to refine his body and form a divine body. A normal cultivator's physical strength is limited, but a divine body is different. It has unlimited potential, and once a cultivator reaches the paragon stage, he will be immortal. Therefore, a divine body is very important to a cultivator. More importantly, once a cultivator reaches this stage, even if his physical body is destroyed, he can refine it again and reconstruct a divine body. Our physical bodies have been destroyed and we are only left with a few souls. We relied on the force of heaven and earth to refine a divine body. As long as we awaken the divine body, Debao will be able to leave this place. Chu Liwei blinked and joy appeared on her face. That's a great thing. If my strength is able to help you, I will definitely do my best to help you. She knew that Dugu Mabao and the others were trapped here for some reason and couldn't leave. They could only come out for a short while during the red moon every month. Most of the time they stayed in the desert in the dark. Now that Dugu Mabao had a divine body, they could come out in the future. The world was so big, where couldn't they go? This is a good thing, but there is a small problem with Debao. Lan Zhao's tone sounded like he was trying to hold back his laughter. What problem? Chu Luiyue asked. Actually, it's nothing. When you rushed back to Xiling, he was anxious to help you, so he sped up the process of refining the divine body. Lan Xiao, if you don't want your tongue, I can pull it out for you. Dugu Mabao's voice was filled with murderous intent. Okay. I won't say any more. You can tell you, or yourself. Lan Xiao begged for mercy, and it was rare that he didn't fight with Dugu Mabao. This made Chu Luiyue feel even more strange. This divine body was so important. Since it had been refined, what other problems could there be? Why does Lan Xiao sound like this has something to do with me? She thought for a moment and said, Senior, where is your divine body now? What should I do to wake him up? Just as he finished speaking, the waves on the surface of the water suddenly became bigger. Then a whirlpool appeared in the center of the sapphire lake. The ripples spread out in all directions, and the center gradually caved in. A cocoon suffused with a faint purple light slowly rose from within. A divine and powerful pressure faintly came from above. Just by standing there, Chu Luiyue already felt a stifling feeling in his chest. The origin power in his body suddenly slowed down at this moment. This was the aura of an absolute crushing powerhouse. Chu Luiyue was secretly shocked. This was just a divine body that had yet to awaken, yet it was already so terrifying. Who knew how astonishing Dugu Mabao's true strength was? At this moment, a gentle yet powerful energy suddenly gushed out from the water droplet in her body, entering her limbs and bones. That oppressive feeling dissipated by a lot. However, Chu Luiyue still held her breath and looked ahead without blinking, not daring to miss a single thing. My divine body is inside here. For some reason, Dugu Mabao's voice sounded even more awkward. Later, you just need to prick your index finger and inject some origin power into it. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. Okay. Then the cocoon of light flew toward Chu Luiyue. Perhaps Dugu Mabao had purposely restrained his aura, so Chu Luiyue did not feel any stronger pressure. With the support of the water droplet's power, she could barely stand still. At this moment, Chu Luiyue thought of a problem. Why does this cocoon of light look a little small? Since it's a divine body, it shouldn't look like this. This thought flashed through his mind. Soon, the cocoon of light floated to a step away from Chu Luiyue. There was a faint layer of purple on the cocoon of light, which was magnificent and beautiful. It was a blur inside and she could not see it clearly. Chu Luiyue did not think much of it. She bit her index finger and a dark red blood droplet quickly appeared. Then, the blood droplet seemed to be guided by some kind of power. It left Chu Luiyue's fingertip and floated toward the cocoon of light. Of course, at the same time, it contained an extremely rich origin power. The blood droplet quickly landed in the middle of the cocoon of light. The moment it touched the cocoon of light, the blood droplet quickly disappeared. Then, with a buzzing sound, the cocoon of light suddenly shone brightly. Chu Luiyue instinctively raised her hand to cover her eyes. The purple light shone brightly. Crack. Chu Luiyue clearly heard the sound of something breaking. When the light gradually dissipated, she looked up and looked ahead. With one look, she was stunned on the spot. The cocoon of light had disappeared. It was as if a layer of gauze had been lifted, and she could finally see the situation inside. A child who looked to be 3 or 4 years old was quietly floating in the air. His small face was fair and cute, pink and chubby. His eyelashes were unbelievably thick and slightly curled. He had short purple hair that was fluffy and soft. When the breeze blew, it gently fluttered. As if sensing Chu Luiyue's gaze, he suddenly opened his eyes. A pair of purple eyes. They were so beautiful that they were almost demonic. The two of them looked at each other. He frowned and his expression was fierce. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen it before? This sentence was originally very imposing, but it was a pity that the voice was too cute and did not have much deterrence. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses, stretched out her hand and pointed. Debao, you're not wearing clothes. Chapter 10:19. Dugu Mabao's face froze for a moment. Then Chu Luiyue saw his face turn red at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as though blood was dripping out. Boom. A purple flame suddenly exploded in front of Chu Luiyue. She immediately retreated and narrowly avoided it. A strand of hair on her forehead was burnt, emitting a faint burnt smell. The little person opposite her was quickly covered in a layer of faint purple light. Then he waved his little hands. When the light dissipated, he had already changed into a purple robe. The robe was very exquisite. Under the sunlight, it reflected a faint glow and looked more like a soft armor. Chu Luiyue looked at the scene in front of her with a complicated expression. Originally, this appearance was supposed to be majestic and dignified, but unfortunately, De Bao's image had completely collapsed in her heart. Ha 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 ha. A burst of loud laughter suddenly erupted from the lake. De Bao? Ah. You didn't wear any clothes when you saw you, Ah. Lan Xiao always spoke casually like an immortal. This was the first time Chu Luiyue heard such a forthright laugh from him. The corner of her eyes twitched slightly. I seem to have laughed a little too loudly. Indeed, the more Lan Xiao laughed, the more gloomy De Bao's face became. Her face, which was originally red, immediately turned black and red. The newly condensed godly body didn't wear any clothes, but he was careless just now and forgot about it. Moreover, the process was very difficult. The three of them had been trapped here for many years and he was the first to succeed. You haven't even condensed half a godly body. What right do you have to laugh here? De Bao gritted his teeth and said. Lan Xiao didn't sense the danger at all. Instead he laughed even harder. Ha ha, but you didn't wear any clothes. Ah. Are you done laughing? De Bao said each word coldly as if there was endless pressure. Ah. Lan Xiao's voice stopped abruptly. Poof. There was a sudden explosion in the lake. Then the surroundings finally quieted down. The whirlpool in the lake quickly recovered, leaving only a few ripples. Dugu Mabao's back was facing Chu Luiyue. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. However, he did not turn around for a long time. The atmosphere was very awkward. De Bao? Chu Luiyue stood still for a while. Seeing that he still hadn't moved, he couldn't help but call out to him. Dugu Mabao resigned himself to his fate and turned around. What? He raised his chin slightly and asked coldly with an expressionless face. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows seemed to carry a hint of impatience. Chu Luiyue shifted his gaze. The expression on his little face had already returned to normal, but there was still a trace of redness on his ears that had not yet faded. He looked like a child who had done something wrong and refused to admit his mistake. This way, even if they knew that he had a divine body, the threat he posed was still zero. Chu Luiyue held back his laughter and said with a very serious and sincere expression, De Bao, did I help you? Only then did De Bao's expression soften a little. He turned his face and looked into the distance. After a moment he responded with an Chu Luiyue smiled, his eyes curved. That's good. However, can I ask, why can I help you like this? Chu Luiyue's eyes were filled with curiosity. Although she had broken through to become a rank 7 warrior and even had a strand of divine power stored in her body, it didn't seem like it was the turn of a cultivator of her level to awaken a divine body, right? Why didn't she know that she was so powerful? Dugu Mabao frowned. Of course it's because of you, it's you. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What did he mean by that? Dugu Mabao glanced at her and saw her blank expression. He suddenly remembered that she had forgotten those things. He opened his mouth, but when the words reached his mouth, he changed his mind. After the divine body is successfully condensed, a certain amount of divine power is needed as a primer. Coincidentally, you have a strand of divine power in your body, so... Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered as she smiled faintly. I have divine power, and it's something that only happened recently. Could it be that you already knew at that time so you got Shuai to deliver the news? De Bao and the other two were indeed powerful, but they couldn't leave the Red Moon Desert, so it was impossible for them to know about these things so quickly. In other words, they must have made this plan long ago. Then it definitely wasn't because of the divine power in her body. Dugu Mabao choked and immediately said, You misheard. You heard wrong. I was talking about the heavenly energy. You had it in your body before, didn't you? Chu Luiyue smiled but didn't say anything. The two of them were standing face to face, so of course she couldn't have heard wrongly. Moreover, there were 3 strands of heavenly Tao power in her body. One was obtained when she broke open the Tianling God realm, and the other 2 were obtained from the legendary 3-eyed eagle and dumpling. However, she was very tactful and didn't continue asking. Dugu Mabao obviously didn't want to answer this question directly now, so there was no point in asking anymore. Thus, she nodded to show that she understood and changed the topic. I see. Oh right, just now, Senior Lan Xiao said that you seem to have only... When Lan Xiao said, a small problem, he was probably referring to Dugu Mabao's divine body being too young. Even though he always sounded like a child, Chu Luiyue definitely didn't believe that Dugu Mabao was a real 3-year-old child. This matter seemed to have something to do with her? Dugu Mabao frowned and returned to his usual expressionless face. It has nothing to do with you. Suddenly, a chuckle sounded beside his ear. Girl, don't listen to his excuses. Chu Luiyue was stunned. This was Lan Zhao's voice. She looked up and saw that Dugu Mabao didn't seem to have any reaction. Girl, don't worry. You can't hear this. We still have the ability to do that. You just have to listen to me. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and listened quietly as if she was thinking about something. However, she was actually listening to Lan Xiao. He doesn't want to tell you these things, but I have to tell you. Lan Xiao stopped teasing her and became much more serious. We already know that you were harmed by that adulterous couple. Back then you returned to Xiling to take revenge, right? Actually, at that time we also wanted to help you and support you. Unfortunately, the three of us were trapped here and couldn't leave. Only by condensing a divine body could we break out of this cage. You should also be able to see that Big Bao is the strongest among us. He can also condense a divine body the fastest. In fact, he still needed 3 years to succeed, but at that time, in order to help you, he decided to forcefully break through. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat as she vaguely guessed something. Lan Xiao sighed softly. He broke through in advance. Although he barely succeeded, it's a pity that in the end he really became like this. Once the divine body is condensed, it's hard to change. Chapter 10:20. Chu Liyue's heart shuddered violently. Didn't this mean that Debao might be like this for the rest of his life? A person's life was extremely long, let alone someone like Debao who had already stepped into the god realm and condensed a godly body. Although he looked cute now, he wasn't a real child. If he was trapped in the godly body of a 3-year-old forever, it would be an extremely torturous thing for anyone. Don't let him see that you already know. Lan Xiao sighed. Even Diwu and I didn't know about this decision at first. If it wasn't for the failure, if it wasn't for the fact that we almost failed and woke us up, we wouldn't have known. He refused to tell you about this and he didn't let us mention it either. But I don't think we should hide this from you. I'm not saying this to make you feel grateful to him, but to let you know. Although some people choose to betray you, there are also people who will always be on your side. Even if you have to pay a huge price. This was the first time Chu Luiyue heard Lan Xiao speak so seriously. There seemed to be something surging in her chest. Her heart was hot and swollen, and even her limbs and bones seemed to have warmed up. She closed her eyes and hid the bitterness in them. When she looked up again, she had already regained her smile. No matter what, Debao, I'm very happy to be able to help you. Since he had already condensed a godly body, Dugu Mabao was a free man. After being trapped in the Red Moon Desert for so many years, he was still not used to it when he suddenly came out. Especially, in his current state. It took him a long time to gradually convince himself to ignore this point. After all, it was already very difficult to come out. After the two of them chatted for a while, Chu Liwei asked a question that had been hovering in her heart for a long time. Debao, you know Rongxiu, right? Dugu Mabao glanced at her. Chu Liyue's eyes were calm. For you to be willing to let Shui deliver such important news, it's actually enough to prove this, isn't it? Hearing her name, Shui, who had been waiting patiently in the distance, became spirited. Then he heard Dugu Mabao's cold voice. It just so happens that I needed to look for you. It came by itself. It would be a waste not to use it. Shui shuddered. She wanted to cry but had no tears. How could he have come by himself? If it wasn't for the master's order, why would it come to this place? He really had no animal rights. Chu Liyue paused. Dugu Mabao's words didn't directly answer her question. She looked up slightly and smiled. Debao, you don't have to worry so much. I've already remembered many things, including the things that happened with Rongxiu in the Divine Ruins world. As soon as he said that, a trace of shock and surprise finally flashed through Dugu Mabao's beautiful and bewitching purple eyes. You remember everything? When did this happen? Chu Liyue calmed down. As expected. That cliff, that octagonal pavilion, it was indeed in the Divine Ruins world. And the person who played chess with her was indeed Rongxiu himself. The two of them clearly knew each other in the Divine Ruins world. Actually, the things she remembered were limited. This sentence was just a test, and Dugu Mabao's answer just so happened to confirm her previous guess. I don't remember everything. I just remember a part of it. Chu Liyue's mind raced. Since Dugu Mabao and the others knew about these things, it was obvious that they knew Rongxiu. Then it seemed reasonable to ask Shui for help. However, these people had never revealed anything to her before. So this time I plan to personally make a trip to the Divine Ruins world. Dugu Mabao frowned, his pinkish-white face looking solemn. Now. Don't tell me you don't know how dangerous it is to go to the Divine Ruins world with your current strength? Since I've been there before, why can't I go now? Dugu Mabao wanted to say something but hesitated. Naturally, it's because you were stronger than you are now. However, thinking about how she did have a lot of trump cards on her, perhaps it might not be impossible. He thought for a moment. I'll go with you. Before Chu Luiyue could react, Xue Xue suddenly jumped up from afar. Roar. This ancestor wants to go with me? When the time comes, I'm afraid the sky will be overturned. Am I not welcome? Dugu Mabao glanced at it indifferently. Xue Xue immediately lay down obediently. I'm just joking. How can I not welcome it? Chu Luiyue, with Rong Xiu's personality, how could he raise such an unprincipled beast like Xue Xue? As if seeing through Chu Luiyue's thoughts, Xue Xue looked at her sadly. Did she forget how it had been tortured before? Who could withstand that? You don't agree? Dugu Mabao asked Chu Luiyue. Although its tone was calm, its small face was filled with a clear threatening aura. Chu Luiyue raised her hands in agreement. Of course I agree. She wasn't faking her agreement. She really felt that this was quite good. The Divine Ruins world was mysterious and unpredictable, and there were many strong people. Although she had been there before, she almost couldn't remember anything now. She was afraid that she would be in the dark when she arrived. If Debeo could go with her, wouldn't it save her a lot of trouble? Besides, with such a strong person as her backing, she would indeed be more confident. Seeing Chu Luiyue's sincere expression, Dugu Mabao nodded in satisfaction. Then let's set off today. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment. The snapper? Diwu and Lan Xiao will take care of her here. Chu Luiyue thought about it. This was quite good. Although it might be a little difficult, it was indeed a rare opportunity for Snapper. Dugu Mabao was a strong person who had entered the god level. Diwu Zhangze and Lan Xiao would probably not be too far off. If it were anyone else, they might not even be able to meet them. Chu Luiyue waved at Xue Xue. Xue Xue, we should go. When Xue Xue heard that, although it was a little unwilling, it still slowly moved over. It walked straight to Chu Luiyue's feet and quickly glanced at Dugu Mabao before leaning close to Chu Luiyue. Dumpling, who was squatting on Xue Xue's shoulder, finally couldn't help but snicker. Xue Xue glared at it angrily. You're the only one who didn't make it in time. You can try the power of this ancestor. Young. Ignorant. A cold smile flashed across Dumpling's bright eyes. Then it leaned its head and nestled in Chu Luiyue's shoulder. Did it think it was stupid? Of course, it could tell that Dugu Mabao was very strong and couldn't be offended. If it had its own master to rely on, why would it go to someone else to suffer? Xue Xue slowly widened its eyes. Its face was filled with grief and anger. In the end, it turned its head away angrily and didn't argue with it. It chose its own master. What could it do? Achoo! Rong Xiu suddenly sneezed. He rubbed his nose. Looks like a certain someone hasn't been living very well recently. Chapter 1021. Chu Luiyue had originally planned to look for Rong Xiu and ask him about what happened back then. After knowing about the existence of the Divine Ruins world, he also wanted to inquire about it. Now that he knew that he was there, he naturally saved a lot of effort. In the end, he decided to let Xue Xue bring them there. Xue Xue originally wanted to resist, but after knowing that Dugu Mabao was going with them, he gave up on the idea and obediently brought the two of them back. Of course, Xue Xue only carried Chu Luiyue. As for Dugu Mabao, he had already condensed a divine body, and his speed was only faster than Xue Xue's. Of course he would travel alone. Thus, the two of them and the beast set off just like that. The Divine Ruins world is thousands of miles away from here. Even if we travel at full speed, it will take nearly 10 days. On the way, Dugu Mabao would occasionally answer Chu Luiyue's questions. Most of them were related to the Divine Ruins world. During the journey, Chu Luiyue also tried to ask him about what happened back then, but Dugu Mabao kept his mouth shut. After trying twice, Chu Luiyue simply gave up. If we use the teleportation array, will it take so long? Chu Luiyue asked. Dugu Mabao stepped on a purple short sword with his hands behind his back. He walked with the wind, his clothes fluttering. Of course, his expression was also very noble and cold. If one ignored his chubby face and his slightly protruding belly due to his two short hands clasped behind his back, he was still very imposing. Hearing Chu Luiyue's question, he snorted softly. There is no teleportation array between the Heaven's Canopy world and the Divine Ruins world. If you want to enter the Divine Ruins world, you must first reach the border of the Divine Ruins world and then enter through a different entrance. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. After thinking for a while, he understood something. It seems that the people of the Divine Ruins world are really arrogant. They didn't even set up a teleportation array, which meant that they didn't intend to contact anyone from the outside world. If the people inside wanted to go out, there was nothing to say. However, if the people outside wanted to go in, they would have to cross thousands of rivers and mountains and go through many difficulties. Of course. Dugu Mabao said nonchalantly. Those who are able to establish themselves in the Divine Ruins world are the top clans of the continent. They have the right to be arrogant, so of course they think highly of themselves. Even if we reach the border, it won't be that easy to enter. Those entrances and exits are controlled by different sects and forces, and the security is extremely strict. As he spoke, Dugu Mabao glanced sideways at Chu Luiyue. If you are not from the Divine Ruins realm, if you want to enter, you have to be at least a stage 9 martial artist. With your current level, you won't be able to enter. Fortunately, you have a strand of divine power in your body. At that time, I might be able to force my way in. Chu Luiyue gently nodded and silently clenched his fists. Dugu Mabao's words were actually very objective. She indeed did not have that right now. Compared to the top powerhouses of the mainland, the current her was probably just an ant. The strong were respected. Only when she became stronger could she have the right to speak. Otherwise, she could only be trampled on by others. She did not even have the right to raise her head to look at others. Dugu Mabao seemed to have seen through her thoughts. His expression changed slightly and his voice softened a little. Although your current level is not high, you have recovered the Tianjing Yuan Meridian and have several trump cards. You are not inferior to those disciples of the Divine Ruins world. Chu Luiyue knew that he was comforting her. Her eyes curved slightly as she nodded seriously. Yes, I know. After a moment of silence, she suddenly thought of something and asked, "Oh right, I haven't asked. What clan does Rong Xiu belong to?" Previously, Rong Xiu had mentioned that his mother's clan was in the Heaven's Canopy world. Now it seemed that it was the Divine Ruins world. At that time she vaguely felt that it should be a very large clan. It was just that she did not ask in detail, so she was not too sure. Since they were going to the Divine Ruins world now, they should have some understanding. Dugu Mabao's expression suddenly became a little strange. When we arrive you will naturally know. Chu Luiyue was stunned. They were almost there, but Dugu Mabao was still keeping it a secret? But looking at his determined expression, she had no choice but to shrug her shoulders. All right. When we arrive I will ask him personally. She also wanted to see how Rong Xiu would explain it when the time came. 10 days later, Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao finally arrived at the border of the Divine Ruins world. This was a vast plain that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was very similar to the Heaven's Canopy world. There was also a translucent silver curtain that descended from the sky. However, the pressure from above was much stronger than that of the Heaven's Canopy world. Vaguely, one could see the occasional silhouette of a person flashing past behind the curtain. That should be the person in charge of guarding the border of the Divine Ruins world. At this moment, Chu Luiyue already felt a little stuffy in her chest before they even got close. If not for the fact that she had already broken through to become a rank 7 warrior and had stored endless force and divine power in her body, she would probably have knelt on the ground at this moment. She looked around. On the boundless plain, there were not many people coming and going. Dugu Mabao retracted his aura and descended from the sky. From here on out, everyone will have to walk. Chu Luiyue nodded. Follow me. Dugu Mabao said and walked forward. Chu Luiyue quickly followed. The closer they got, the stronger the pressure. Chu Luiyue only felt that her shoulders were getting heavier and heavier, but fortunately, it was still within her tolerance range. When the two of them walked to a certain position, a figure suddenly flew out from the light curtain. At the same time, a huge rune appeared on the light curtain. This is the gate world of the Heavenly Cave Cliff. Who are you? Digression, 6 p.m. Chapter 1022. A God-level expert. The moment Chu Luiyue saw the other party, she immediately felt a heavy pressure. She clenched her fists in her sleeves and straightened her back. Then she took a step forward and said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, "I am Duguyu. Greetings, sir." She did not report her identity as Shangguanyu or Chu Luiyue. Instead, she chose the same surname as De Bao and a fake name. She also wore a mask on her face and disguised herself as an ordinary woman. This was because she did not know what identity she had used when she came to the Divine Ruins world in the past. Moreover, she did not deliberately hide the fact that Chu Luiyue was Shangguanyu. If someone investigated, they would know. Therefore, on the way here, she had already discussed with De Bao that she would completely change her identity to make things easier. Lin Xiao, who was in charge of guarding the gate, sized up the woman in front of him. She looked to be around 20 years old and had an ordinary appearance. Only a pair of jet-black jade-like eyes could be seen as they moved. It was a pity that such eyes grew on such a face. But this was not the main point of his attention. Lin Zhao's expression was cold and solemn as he frowned. Those who are not from the Divine Ruins world, only those who have broken through to the 9th stage and stepped into the Divine Realm are qualified to enter. Are you enough? Between his words, there was a natural sense of superiority in his bones. It was not that he was deliberately looking down on Chu Luiyue, but that they had always been like this to people who were not from the Divine Ruins world. They were guarding this place and had to see countless people who wanted to enter the Divine Ruins world every day. Some of them had true ability and relied on their own strength to break through that threshold and obtain permission to enter, thus stepping into a new stage. But such people were few and far between. The cultivation environment outside the Divine Ruins world was very ordinary. Those who could reach this step were all geniuses among geniuses. Sometimes, an empire might not be able to produce such an expert in hundreds of years. Most of the rest of them were trying to sneak in by swindling and using underhanded methods. Therefore the guards here, no matter which clan they were from, scoffed at such people. When he heard that Chu Luiyue was from the Tianling dynasty, he naturally did not pay much attention to her. How could such a young girl have such ability? She was most likely here to play. If it wasn't for the fact that she seemed to have some kind of divine artifact on her that concealed her aura and made it impossible to tell what level she was at, he wouldn't even ask this question. Chu Luiyue did not mind his impatience. She smiled and raised her hand. A brilliant and dazzling origin power appeared at her fingertips. Lin Zhao's originally lazy and impatient expression suddenly froze, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. This was divine power. You are a demigod? He looked at the woman in front of him in bewilderment and asked in disbelief. A demigod cultivator, a cultivator, a cultivator, a cultivator, a cultivator, a cultivator. Just like Taizu back in the day. Lin Zhao asked this because he could see that the divine power the woman in front of him could use was limited. However, she did have divine power. In such a situation she was basically a demigod. Dugu Mabao had told Chu Luiyue about this on the way here. Therefore, Chu Luiyue put away the ball of divine power, then smiled and nodded, taking advantage of the situation. I wonder if I am qualified to enter now? Of course she was qualified to enter. Lin Zhao's expression changed, and the way he looked at Chu Luiyue again was very different from before. There was more respect. Is this your first time here? Chu Luiyue nodded. Those who are here for the first time have to register. Lin Zhao said and waved his wrist. A booklet appeared out of thin air. He opened the booklet and handed over a pen at the same time. You just need to write your name and the date. Chu Luiyue glanced at it. This booklet was not connected to an ordinary book. It was as heavy as a boulder. She almost couldn't hold it properly at first. The booklet had been opened, and what appeared in front of Chu Luiyue was a blank page. However, she could vaguely see that there were some names written on the front page which were glowing with different colors. Chu Luiyue picked up the pen and wrote down her name. Duguyu. After writing, her wrist paused and she looked up at Lin Zhao. I wonder if this date, Xan Yuan calendar, year 3574, the 16th of September. Lin Zhao reminded her. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. The pen in her hand accidentally drew a line on the page. Lin Zhao frowned. What's wrong? Chu Luiyue immediately lowered her eyes. Nothing, it's just that. I feel that this calendar is a little strange. I've never heard of it before. Lin Zhao snorted with a hint of arrogance. You're not from the Divine Ruins world, so it's normal that you don't know about this. Remember, when you enter the Divine Ruins world in the future, follow this calendar. Chu Luiyue gripped the pen tightly, suppressed the waves in her heart, and wrote that line of words. Then she handed over the booklet and pen and smiled at him gratefully. Thank you for your reminder, sir. When she smiled, her eyes curved into crescents and her eyes shone brightly, adding a touch of charm to her originally ordinary appearance. Lin Zhao looked at her and couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Although her appearance was ordinary at first sight, after looking at her for a long time, she was quite good-looking. Her speech and actions were also quite elegant, making people have a good impression of her. He glanced at the booklet and nodded. You can go in now. Chu Luiyue thanked him and walked inside with Dugu Mabao. Wait. Lin Zhao suddenly reached out and stopped the two of them. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Lin Zhao raised her chin and glanced at Dugu Mabao beside her. You can go in, but he can't. Chu Luiyue frowned. But didn't I already have the qualifications? That's you, not him. Lin Xiao shook her head, her attitude firm. Neither of you are from the Divine Ruins world. If you want to go in, the standards are the same. As soon as the two of them arrived, Dugu Mabao retracted his aura, so he looked no different from an ordinary child. Chu Luiyue glanced at Dugu Mabao. He had already condensed his body, so of course he was qualified to go in. It was just that for some reason he seemed to be a little afraid and unwilling to show his true strength. Can't we bring family members? Chu Luiyue asked, unwilling to give up. Look, he's still so young. Suddenly, a cold wind blew from the back of her head. Chu Luiyue coughed and winked at Dugu Mabao. Do you still want to go in? Lin Xiao glanced at the two of them and said coldly, don't worry. No. If you really can't you just hand the child over to his father? Why do you have to bring him along as his mother? Chapter 1023. Chu Luiyue's mind went blank. This person seemed to have gotten something wrong? Before she could say anything, she felt a cold air that could freeze a person to death suddenly erupt beside her. She turned her head and saw that Dugu Mabao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Looking at his expression, Chu Luiyue was quick to react. She pressed his head with one hand and turned his face away. If he continued to look at me, I'm afraid that he would kill me with that gaze. Sir, you must be joking. Before Chu Luiyue could finish her explanation, Dugu Mabao grabbed Chu Luiyue's wrist and turned his head stubbornly. Anyone who saw the expression on his little face would have noticed that something was wrong. Lin Xiao seemed to have noticed something. She turned her gaze and looked down. Chu Luiyue bent down and quickly hugged Dugu Mabao with one hand and pressed his little head onto her shoulder with the other. Before Dugu Mabao could react, his whole body was suddenly lifted into the air and he fell into a warm and sweet embrace. He turned his little hand and was about to hit her, but he held himself back in the end. Sir, look, it's not easy for me to take care of a child alone. A trace of misery quickly appeared on her face. Although she was still smiling, it only made people feel bitter. I don't know where his father is now. Dugu Mabao struggled violently, but unfortunately, Chu Luiyue hugged him tightly. On one hand, he did not want to use his strength. On the other hand, he was afraid that he would really hurt Chu Luiyue if he made a move. He could only rely on his short and fat body to try his best. Unfortunately, it did not work. Dabao, be good, Chu Luiyue softly coaxed him. Her arms secretly clamped his waist so that he could not move. At the same time, her palm gently patted his back as if she was really coaxing a child. When Dugu Mabao heard this, he finally gave up struggling and buried his face tightly into Chu Luiyue's shoulder in despair. At this time it was better not to show his face. Otherwise, if this matter were to spread out, his reputation would be completely ruined. Seeing that he had finally stopped, Chu Luiyue secretly heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Lin Xiao pleadingly. Sir, please help us. Look, such a small child, if no one takes care of him. She had an aggrieved look on her face which made one's heart ache. Lin Xiao's frown deeper, but she still waved her hand. No. There has never been a precedent like this before. How? Let them go in together. At this moment, a gentle voice came from behind them. Chu Luiyue turned to look. The person who came was a young man who looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. He was very handsome and the color of his eyes was very light. There was a shallow crescent-shaped scar at the corner of his eye, which made his cold and distant temperament even more obvious. He wore a crescent-shaped white brocade robe and stood tall and straight. He deserved to be called an elegant young master. However, his face was very pale, especially his lips, which did not have any color in them. It looked as if he had been sick for a long time. It was as if a light touch would shatter like glass. However, Chu Luiyue quickly realized that this person's aura was very strong. He was also a powerhouse who had stepped into the god realm. It seemed like he was also a demigod. When Lin Xiao saw the person who came, her expression changed and she immediately knelt down on one knee to greet him. Greetings, fourth young master. Cough, cough, cough. The young man was about to say something but suddenly coughed. Lin Xiao quickly went forward looking nervous. Fourth young master, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell again? The young man smiled faintly. My body has always been like this. I'm already used to it. He shook his head, indicating that he was fine, and pointed at Chu Luiyue and Lin Xiao. It's not easy for her to raise a child alone. No matter what, the child didn't commit any crimes. This child is only 3 years old and he won't cause any trouble. It's fine to let him in. Why separate the mother and son over such a small matter? His tone was very calm, as if he was looking at Chu Luiyue and Lin Xiao, or as if he was recalling something. Lin Xiao did not dare to say anything. Everyone knew that the Heavenly Cave Cliff's matriarch had died in childbirth in order to give birth to the fourth young master, Lin Qifei. For many years, the fourth young master had been brooding about this. There were many rumors outside that the fourth young master was a freak who was born to jinx his mother to death. Although the higher-ups had always ordered that rumors were not to be spread, how could they control people's mouths? The fourth young master had more or less heard about it. This also caused his personality to be more sensitive, introverted, and indifferent. Under normal circumstances he would not care about these things. Today, when he saw the scene of the mother and son being separated, he could not bear it, so he opened his mouth. Since the fourth young master has said so, then I will let them in. I hope the fourth young master can rest assured. Lin Xiao respectfully responded, and then said to Chu Luiyue, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and thank the fourth young master." Chu Luiyue immediately hugged Dabao and thanked Lin Qifei with a face full of gratitude. "Thank you, fourth young master." Lin Qifei just waved his hand and said calmly, "It's nothing. It's not easy for you to come this far. When you enter the Divine Ruins world in the future, you must take good care of him." As he spoke, he looked at Dugu Mabao, who was still lying in Chu Luiyue's arms. "Although you are still young, I hope that you will be sensible soon and understand your mother's hard work." Chu Luiyue could clearly hear the sound of someone gnashing his teeth. She patted Dugu Mabao's head and smiled, "Fourth young master, please rest assured. Please rest assured, fourth young master. Our Dabao has always been the most sensible." Originally she wanted him to thank Lin Qifei and act out the whole show. However, after thinking about it, Chu Luiyue gave up. She still wanted to leave herself a way out. It was not good to be too ruthless. Lin Qifei coughed a few more times, and it was getting more and more intense. In the end he had to take out a handkerchief to cover it, but it still did not ease. Lin Xiao did not care about Chu Luiyue and asked nervously, "Fourth young master, why don't I go and ask someone to pick you up?" "Your body?" Lin Qifei shook his head. "I'll go back myself. Why should I let father and the others worry?" After saying that, he moved and passed through the light screen. Chu Luiyue looked at his back and was slightly lost in thought. His illness seemed to be, "All right, stop looking. Why aren't you going in?" Lin Xiao sighed in his heart. He turned his head and saw that Chu Luiyue was still standing there in a daze. He hurriedly urged him, "It's your great fortune to have the fourth young master's help today. But at this time you must not tell anyone. Do you understand?" Chu Luiyue repeatedly thanked him and promised that he wouldn't say anything more. Then he carried Dabao and walked forward. With a single kick, he crossed the light screen. "What did you say?" Rong Xiu looked up from the booklet. "She has a child with her?" Yan Qing knelt on one knee, not daring to raise her head. "Yes. I heard that she got in as a widow and an orphan with fourth young master Lin's help." Rong Xiu was so angry that he laughed and threw the booklet down. "Orphan and widow?" Digression. The content of the event has already been released. Everyone can click on it and take a look. There are no restrictions on the content of the long comments. Character analysis, mini-dramas, confession of love for the month of February are all accepted. Don't hesitate. In these few days, the first batch of chosen children is about to be born. Might be you. In addition, if you have more than 10 monthly votes, you have a chance to win first place. You can also fight for more than 120 recommendation votes. If you think you have a chance, you can join the group and fight the final battle at the end of the month. It's so big. Chapter 1024. Yan Qing's head drooped even lower. "I knew that Madam was coming, but who would have thought that it would be like this? What does that child look like?" "I heard that it's a boy around 3 years old with purple hair and purple eyes. It's very easy to recognize him." "Purple hair?" Rong Xiu pondered for a moment, then suddenly thought of something. His slender fingers tapped on the table twice, and a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. After a moment he chuckled. "She sure has a big heart." She was the only one who dared to pretend to be his mother. However, from this, it could be seen that that person treated her differently. If it was anyone else, they would have already died 10,000 times. Sensing that the anger on Rong Xiu's body seemed to have dissipated a little, Yan Qing raised his head and asked cautiously, "Then, Your Highness, next, there's no need to interfere. Shui Shui is there to protect them. When they arrive, I will personally pick them up. Moreover, with that person around who could bully her." Although he was not very happy in his heart, since that person wanted to come, this was the only way. "Yes." At this moment, Chu Luiyue stepped through the light screen and stepped into the Divine Ruins world. As his feet stepped on the thick ground, Chu Liyue actually felt a sense of absent-mindedness. She calmed herself down and looked around. In front of her was still a vast plain. The sky was blue. At the place where the heavens and earth met there was a city. The city was tall and grand, solemn and imposing. Outside the city, there was a huge barrier that enveloped it. Even from such a far distance he could still feel the heavy pressure. That's the Heavenly Cave Cliff. Dugu Mabao jumped down from Chu Liyue's embrace and spoke with a calm face. Heavenly Cave Cliff? Chu Liyue had already heard of this name several times before. Is it also a clan in the Divine Ruins world? Within the Divine Ruins world, there are no empires or dynasties, only sects and clans. The stronger the sect, the higher its status, and the more resources and treasures it could occupy. There are no laws here. The only rule was that the weak were prey to the strong, and the strong were respected. Chu Liyue was slightly shocked. Although it was just a few simple sentences, she could hear the thick smell of blood. There are many sects and clans in the Divine Ruins world, but there are also differences in strength. Grotto Heaven Cliff can barely be considered third-rate here. Chu Liyue was speechless. Third-rate? That young Master Lin from before had already stepped into the God realm at such a young age. Who would have thought that the family of such a person could only be considered third-rate? If this is only third-rate, then how powerful would the so-called first-rate be? Chu Liyue couldn't help but murmur. Although it's a third-rate sect in the Divine Ruins world, to be able to get a third-rate ranking means that you've already won against more than half of the sects and clans. You must know that the vast majority of sects and clans do not have the qualifications to send people to guard the entrance to the Divine Ruins. Dugu Mabao glanced at her. Do you still remember the runes that appeared on the light screen just now? Chu Liyue nodded. That's the totem of Grotto Heaven Cliff. There are very few people who can engrave their own totem on the light screen of the Divine Ruins world. Chu Liyue understood. I understand. In other words, no matter how many times they are here, they are not people we can afford to offend? Dugu Mabao, although he was expressionless with his chubby little face, he looked even cuter. Especially those eyes that should have been filled with dignity and coldness. Because of the curly eyelashes that were too beautiful, they could not form any deterrence. Chu Liyue could not help but reach out to rub his hair. Speaking of which, your performance just now was pretty good. Swoosh. Dugu Mabao immediately jumped 3 feet high and quickly retreated. He glared at Chu Liyue's hand as if facing a great enemy. What are you trying to do? If he wanted to do what he did just now, that was impossible. Chu Liyue coughed. Only then did she remember that the person in front of her was not a real child. She withdrew her hand embarrassedly. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. But I just wanted to say that we should go. Dugu Mabao still looked at her with vigilance. I'll walk on my own. After saying that, he moved to the side and turned to walk forward. Chu Liyue rubbed the space between her eyebrows. TSK. What happened just now seemed to have left a big shadow on Debeo. She quickly chased after him and followed behind him. Don't worry, don't worry. If there are no special circumstances in the future, I promise that it won't happen again. Dugu Mabao did not say anything and silently sped up. There were not many people in the wilderness. Occasionally they could see some people in a hurry. Most of their auras were very hidden. They seemed to be hiding their realms. After walking for a while, Chu Liyue asked in a low voice. Although her strength could not be compared to most of the people here, she was extremely sensitive to the aura of the force. With one glance she could roughly determine the other party's level. However, she had met a few people just now, but she could not find out the other party's background. Of course. Although Dugu Mabao's face was still cold, he still answered Chu Liyue's question. There is only one rule in the world of Divine Ruins. The strong are respected. In order to become stronger, the people here can do anything. If you directly expose your realm, it will definitely attract a lot of attention. Who knows when it will attract a lot of trouble. Unless you have a strong background or have a strong person by your side, you should not easily reveal your level. Especially, Dugu Mabao stopped in his tracks and looked up at her. You're still so weak. Chu Liyue choked. She had lived 2 lives. Other than when she had just been reborn and was called a good-for-nothing for a period of time, she was called a genius most of the time. Whether they liked or disliked her, no matter how unwilling they were in this aspect, they would all admit that she was extremely talented. Only Debeo was always full of disdain for her. However, he was right. In this place she was indeed very weak. She pursed her lips. Her desire to become stronger became even more urgent. Most people use yuan instruments to hide their auras. However, there are good and bad yuan instruments. Some of the top experts are still able to see through the yuan instrument and see through the cultivator's rank. Then mine, don't worry about yours, Dugu Mabao said lightly. Your yuan instrument that hides your aura is still somewhat useful. Normal people can't see anything. Chu Luiyue responded as if she understood. She touched the silver ring around her neck that was the size of a fingernail. This thing was given to her by Dugu Mabao in the beginning. At that time, he only said that he had to hide his aura in order to smoothly pass through the border of the world of divine ruins. She did not expect it to be so important. However, she did not know what level this item was. There's a teleportation formation in the city ahead. Let's go there. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1025. The two of them walked all the way to the city gate. There were guards in charge of guarding the gate. They held long swords and stood on both sides. They were dressed in the same uniform and had the same tattoo on the left side of their chests. Chu Luiyue glanced at it. It was the one that appeared on the light screen when they came in earlier. It was the totem of Grotto Heaven Cliff. The city gate was obviously much livelier. There was an endless stream of people coming and going. Chu Luiyue led Dugu Mabao forward. The two of them were very eye-catching in the crowd. Chu Luiyue was wearing a mask and looked ordinary. But Dugu Mabao was the key. He had purple hair and purple eyes and was very cute. Plus, his eyes were unbelievably beautiful and clean. Anyone who saw him would like him. When such a small person walked on the street, 100% of the people turned to look at him. Chu Luiyue gradually felt that it was a little inconvenient to be stared at by more and more people. What she was most worried about was that if these people continued to stare, this little ancestor would lose his temper. She glanced at Dugu Mabao and saw that his face had turned cold. There was anger in his eyes. Oh my, whose child is this? Why is he so beautiful? When a big sister came forward to strike up a conversation and reached out to touch Dugu Mabao's face, his face finally darkened completely. Chu Luiyue saw that the situation was not right. She quickly pulled him behind her and smiled apologetically at the woman. I'm sorry. Our child is more introverted and is afraid of strangers. The woman was very disappointed that she did not manage to touch his chubby face. But since he had said so, she did not continue to disturb him. She could only leave reluctantly. Even after she had left, she kept looking back. Dugu Mabao said coldly. If you hadn't stopped me, I wouldn't have let her go so easily. She didn't mean any harm. Chu Luiyue sighed but could only persuade him. Any divine-level expert who had been reduced to such a state and even had their face touched by a stranger would probably be displeased. Anyway, we'll be leaving soon. Bear with it, okay? Dugu Mabao's heart felt stifled. She looked more like she was coaxing a child. He turned around and left in annoyance. Since she did not object, it meant that she agreed. Chu Luiyue secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She thought for a moment and said, actually, if you don't look good, they wouldn't look at you like that. Get used to it, get used to it. In any case, she had already trained herself to be able to turn a blind eye to the various gazes of others around her. Dugu Mabao frowned. Of course he wasn't used to it. No one had ever dared to look at him like that before. Unless they were tired of living. But now he could not say these words to her. After thinking about it, he could only endure it. Under the gazes of many people, the two of them finally arrived at the city gate and prepared to enter. Dugu. As soon as he finished speaking, the guard's expression changed slightly. The person who was in charge of recording also raised his head and looked over. You're Dugu, who came from outside the Divine Ruins world. Chu Luiyue nodded in confusion. However, at this moment, the surrounding voices suddenly fell silent. Almost everyone turned to look at him. All kinds of gazes were focused on Chu Luiyue. Alarm bells rang in her heart, but she still looked calm on the surface. Why, is there a problem? That's not it. The soldier in charge of the inspection smiled ambiguously and looked at Chu Luiyue again. It's just that it's been a long time since someone from the outside came to Heavenly Cave Cliff, so it's a little strange. Although he said it casually, Chu Luiyue felt that things were not that simple. The reactions of the people around were a little strange. Since Lord Lin Xiao allowed you to come in, just let him in. The guard asked for Dugu Mabao's name and then raised his chin at the person in charge of recording. That person wrote down the names of the two of them. All right, let's go in. Chu Luiyue was suspicious, but she did not dwell on it. She thanked him and led Dugu Mabao into the city. After they left, the crowd started to clamor again. So he's from the outside. It's been a long time since an outsider came to Heavenly Cave Cliff, right? He looks young and ordinary. I didn't expect him to be able to come in, to be able to barge in from the outside. Who knows how old he is? He might be over 100 years old. Who cares how old she is? She dares to come here alone. She really has guts. He's just a little lamb, but he doesn't know that wolves are waiting for him. Once he goes in, he'll suffer. How long do you think he can last? Half a month? 10 days? Humph, an outsider with a child and a woman at that. If she can survive a day, I'll consider her capable. This time, Heavenly Cave Cliff will have a good show to watch. What are they talking about? After walking for a distance, Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao turned into a remote path and spoke. After she left, she could vaguely hear some people talking about something at the city gate. It was all about her. Dugu Mabao's expression was cold. It's just some nonsense. Don't pay attention to it. Hearing that, Chu Luiyue did not continue to ask. Dugu Mabao continued. The teleportation formation that leads to that place is also known as a level 1 teleportation formation. There's only one in the entire Heavenly Cave Cliff, so we can just go there directly. Chu Luiyue was a little curious. How do you know there's only one? Have you been here before? There's only one qualified to build a place like Heavenly Cave Cliff. Dugu Mabao said calmly. Chu Luiyue. After walking for a while, the two of them returned to a more lively street. Chu Luiyue walked to a shop that sold medicinal herbs and walked towards a shop assistant. Hello, may I know how to get to the level 1 teleportation formation here? Although Heavenly Cave Cliff was a city, it covered a large area. It was not convenient for her and Dugu Mabao to look around, so asking someone was the most convenient and fastest way. The shop assistant thought that Chu Luiyue was there to buy medicinal herbs, but when he heard that, his face immediately drooped and his eyelids were half opened. You want to go there? Yes. Please show me the way. Chu Luiyue did not seem to care about his cold attitude. She still had a smile on her face. I'm advising you not to go. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Why is that? Why else? Look over there. As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed in a certain direction. Chu Luiyue looked over and indeed saw a faint light shining over there. Of course it's because the teleportation formation is broken. The shop assistant crossed his arms. Even the cliff master and the others can't use it now, let alone you? If there's nothing else, hurry up and leave. Don't delay our business here. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. It was not easy to come in, but the teleportation formation was broken? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1026. Is there really no other way? In a tea house, Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao sat opposite each other. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the teleportation formation again and asked, unwilling to give up. No. Dugu Mabao's answer was very straightforward. The power of space in the divine ruins is mixed, and the sects are very far away from each other. If ordinary people want to travel here, they have to rely on teleportation formations. Even with a divine beast leading the way, it's very easy to get lost. But we still have Snowy. It won't get the wrong place, but the journey is long and we'll spend a lot of time on the way. Most importantly, it's easy to attract trouble. In the wilderness, killing intent is everywhere. If we're not careful. Chu Luiyue understood without saying anything else. She rubbed her eyebrows. In other words, we can only rely on the teleportation formation. But now, the teleportation formation at Grotto Heaven Cliff is broken. What should we do? Either this teleportation formation is repaired quickly, or we can change to another teleportation formation. If that grade 1 teleportation formation couldn't be used, then they could use other grade 2 or grade 3 teleportation formations to go somewhere else. It couldn't be that every grade 1 teleportation formation was broken, right? It's not impossible, but it'll be more troublesome. Chu Luiyue was helpless. But now this is the only way. Are we going to wait here for them to fix the grade 1 teleportation formation? Who knew how long they would have to wait? Dugu Mabao thought for a moment and finally nodded in agreement. Chu Luiyue asked around and found out that there were 2 grade 2 teleportation formations here, and they led to 2 different places. After discussing, the two of them walked out of the tea house. I'll choose one randomly. No matter which one it is, as long as we can get to the place. Before Chu Luiyue could finish her sentence, she suddenly felt a cold air coming toward her. She stopped in her tracks and looked up abruptly. Who is it? This was a bluestone path. There was no one in front or behind, and it was very quiet. However, Chu Luiyue was still very vigilant, and he began to secretly circulate the force in his body. As expected of someone who could barge in from the outside. You're quite alert. A low and deep voice sounded, carrying a trace of malice. Then, the void in front of Chu Liwei suddenly rippled. A huge hand tore the void apart with incomparable force. A man walked out from within. He looked to be in his 30s. He was tall and had a square face. There was an inch-long scar on his left cheek that looked like a centipede, giving him a ferocious aura. Chu Liwei's heart suddenly jumped. This person's strength was definitely far above hers. The man's eyes swept over Chu Liwei. When he saw the universe ring on her hand, his eyes lit up. Oh, you really do have some good treasures on you. The level of this interspatial ring was not low. There must be a lot of good stuff inside. The ones he had encountered before were all inferior to this one. He stretched out his hand and said in a commanding tone, "Don't worry. As long as you hand over the interspatial ring on your hand, I promise I won't kill you." Chu Liwei's eyes were slightly cold. "You want my interspatial ring?" The man chuckled and stroked the stubble on his chin. "If you want to give me something else, it's not impossible." Although her face is ordinary, her body is top-notch. Chu Liwei was not angry. Instead, she smiled and asked softly, "What if I say no?" Digression. My heart is so tired. In order to let the bookstore synchronize the chapters of the surrounding activities, I specially asked the editor to open the second volume. However, the second volume was a free volume. The chapters would be posted here by default. So, I didn't read it clearly just now and accidentally posted it as a free chapter. Thank you for Yuyu and Lizzie's reminder. I will try to pay more attention in the future. The insomnia headache continued at 6 o'clock p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1027. What kind of place do you think this is? Do you think you can say, no? The man obviously didn't take Chu Liwei's words to heart. He smiled sinisterly, and his eyes were full of contempt and provocation. You are an outsider. This is your first time in the world of divine ruins. There are some rules that you don't understand. Lui will teach you. Anyone who came here would more or less have to do something. Otherwise, this cave heaven cliff is extremely dangerous. It's not certain if you can get out. As he spoke, he sneered coldly and his gaze swept over Dugu Mabao. It would be a pity if something happened to such a beautiful and cute child. Don't you think so? Chu Liwei narrowed her eyes. Are you threatening me? How can it be a threat? I'm just telling the truth. As Lui spoke, the corners of his mouth twitched, revealing an oppressive smile. I don't want to waste time. You'd better hand over the interspatial ring to me. As soon as his voice fell, the aura on his body suddenly burst out. Chu Liwei's pupils shrank. A demigod expert. At this level, she couldn't beat him no matter what. Thinking about it carefully, those who could break into the world of divine ruins from the outside were all experts who had stepped into the realm of gods. Among them, the weakest was a demigod. If Lui wasn't strong enough, he wouldn't dare to do this. Brother, let's talk about it. Chu Liwei's sharp look quickly disappeared and replaced it with a kind smile. Lui sneered. You know what's good for you? Give it to me. Chu Liwei touched the interspatial ring as if she was really going to take it off. At the same time, a trace of embarrassment appeared on her face. Actually, this ring is very important to me, so, why are you dawdling? If you can't take it off, I'll take it myself. As Lui spoke, he strode toward Chu Liwei. So, don't even think about it. A cold light flashed in Chu Liwei's eyes. At the same time, the peach blossom on the inner side of her wrist suddenly bloomed. Lui thought to himself, not good. He immediately summoned a long saber and slashed forward. How dare you? Whoosh. The two figures instantly disappeared from where they stood. Clang. The long saber landed heavily on the ground, emitting a crisp sound. Lui quickly looked around, but there was no one. There wasn't even the slightest bit of spatial fluctuation. Cunning? Lui was enraged. A moment of carelessness had actually allowed the other party to escape. But at the same time, doubt arose in his heart. Only those who had completely stepped into the god realm could teleport. A demigod like him could only watch helplessly. However, that woman didn't seem to have used her own power to teleport. Could he have used some yuan instrument? As he thought of this, his heart trembled. An origin tool that could teleport was extremely rare. In the entire Paradise Cliff, there were probably less than 3 people that possessed such a treasure. If he could snatch it, however, from the looks of it, that woman really did have some treasures. Lui thought for a moment, and a trace of hesitation flashed in his heart. To be able to have so many good things, that woman's identity should not be ordinary. However, on second thought, Louis dispelled the idea. She was just an outsider. What kind of good background could she have? She must have gotten it by luck, and he didn't know how she got it. That woman could teleport. It would be difficult for him to quickly catch her with his own strength. However, he had many spies in Paradise Cliff. As long as he gave the order, he would not have to worry about not being able to find her. A trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes, and he quickly left. Back at the city gate, those people were talking behind his back. This should be what they were talking about, right? After escaping for some distance, Chu Luiyue found a secluded corner. After confirming that the person had escaped, he breathed a sigh of relief. Dugu Mabao glanced at the hand that was still unconsciously held by her. He wanted to pull it away, but when he remembered how she had grabbed his hand without hesitation when she escaped, he hesitated again. After hesitating for a long time, he finally decided to turn his face away and pretend that he did not see it. "Debao, what do you think?" "Debao?" Chu Luiyue shouted twice before Dugu Mabao's attention was pulled back. Dugu Mabao responded indifferently. His expression seemed to be a little impatient, but he did not stop explaining. The people of the Divine Ruins world are naturally hostile and disdainful of outsiders. They will usually find ways to bully them. Moreover, this place is full of crooks and dragons. Right now, in their eyes, you are just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. It's just that those people will never think that Chu Luiyue is a piece of iron. "I see." Chu Luiyue nodded. Only then did she realize that she was still holding Dugu Mabao's hand. She quickly let go and giggled. It was a special situation just now. "Debao, you don't mind, right?" Dugu Mabao's hand was suddenly let go. He immediately felt empty, as if something was missing. Hearing Chu Luiyue's question, he frowned and replied with a faint, Chu Luiyue did not notice his subtle mood. She crossed her arms, leaned against the wall, and thought to herself. Then we are in a bit of trouble now. The other party dared to make a move in broad daylight. He must have a certain background here. What if he was determined to deal with her? She was not confident that she could win. That Louis has good eyesight. With just a glance, he was sure that there was a treasure in it. Chu Luiyue slowly turned the interspatial ring on her hand. When Rong Xiu sent Yanqing to deliver this thing, she immediately saw that the interspatial ring was of a very high level. She just did not expect that it would cause her such trouble now. Dugu Mabao could not help but snort with undisguised contempt and disdain. If he really has good eyesight, he won't. He won't come up to snatch the interspatial ring. Unfortunately, he has bad eyesight. He doesn't even know who he has offended. What? Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Nothing. Dugu Mabao glanced at the sky. Let's go to the second-level transmission array first. There were 2 second-level transmission arrays in Dongtian Cliff City, located in the north and south of the city. The 2 went directly to the south of the city. From afar, the 2 of them saw the huge teleportation array. There was a circle of guards around the transmission array. Their clothes were also tattooed with the totem of the Lin family of Dongtian Cliff. Chu Luiyue was secretly shocked. Although it was only a second-level transmission array, its size and scale were more powerful than the largest transmission array in the Tianling dynasty. In other words, there was no room for comparison between the 2. It was already afternoon, but there were still people coming and going around the transmission array. Everyone would first go to the bottom left when they boarded the transmission array. It seemed that there was a charge for it. Chu Luiyue walked over with Dugu Mabao and said politely, "Hello. We want to board the transmission array and go to the nearest city from here." The man looked up at her. When he saw Dugu Mabao next to her, he narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I won't take your order. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network." Chapter 1028. What? Chu Luiyue looked at the people in front of him who had already paid and boarded the teleportation formation. If they can, why can't I? The guard snorted and revealed a sarcastic smile. You have to ask yourselves this. You offended someone you shouldn't have and you still ask why? Chu Luiyue frowned and suddenly understood. It seemed that it was Lu Yi's fault. Chu Luiyue had long expected that he wouldn't let it go, but he didn't expect his power and means to be so powerful that he could directly prohibit them from boarding the teleportation formation in such a short time. Logically speaking, this teleportation formation should belong to the Lin family. Who was that Lu Yi to have such power? Chu Luiyue calmed down. I'll pay twice the price. The guard didn't even raise his head. Don't think about it. Anyway, we won't let you go up. You give up. Next. 5 times. Chu Luiyue took a step forward. If 5 times is not enough, I'll pay 10 times. The surrounding people quieted down and looked over with different expressions. What a big tone. She actually wants to pay 10 times? Does she know how much the last teleportation formation cost? How dare she boast like this? I think they look a little familiar. Hey, they seem to be the 2 outsiders who entered the city today. That child has purple hair and purple eyes. Isn't that her? Yes. I heard about it too. It's them. It seems that they really offended someone. Now, it's difficult for them to move at Cave Heaven Cliff. The surrounding people were discussing. Chu Luiyue's heart sank slightly. Sure enough, the guard opposite him shrugged without a smile. I said, no matter how much money you pay, it's useless. If you have the time, you'd better apologize to them as soon as possible so that it won't be too ugly in the end. With that, he waved at the people behind him. What are you waiting for? Don't you want to board the teleportation formation? Hurry up. The people behind Chu Luiyue hurriedly stepped forward and pushed her away. Coming. Chu Luiyue took 2 steps back and subconsciously pulled Dugu Mabao behind him to protect him. She stood there for a while, then turned and left. Let's go take a look at the other teleportation array. The result was as expected. The other teleportation portal also firmly rejected Chu Luiyue. Even the remaining 3 level 3 teleportation arrays were the same. In other words, Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao no longer had the chance to leave this place and head to other places. In the blink of an eye, it was already night time. Chu Luiyue found an inn to rest, but he was not in the mood to sleep. It seems that this Lu Yi's identity is indeed not ordinary. He was even more scheming than she had expected. At this level, he could already be considered a local tyrant. He must be related to the Lin family. Dugu Mabao sat on the chair and said calmly. The various sects and clans are in charge of the teleportation formations in their respective territories. On the one hand, building such a teleportation formation requires several top experts to work together. On the other hand, the cost of maintenance is extremely high. That's why they send people to guard the teleportation formation and charge people to come and go to maintain a profit. Under normal circumstances, they won't go against money. Therefore, the person who can mobilize these guards and make them firmly refuse to let us enter the teleportation formation is definitely not an ordinary person. Chu Luiyue fell silent. Knock. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Chu Luiyue went to open the door and the waiter handed her a letter. Dear guest, your letter? Who could she receive a letter from in this place? Chu Luiyue had already guessed something in her heart. She directly took the letter and opened it. She quickly skimmed through it. If you've thought it through, go to the Lu residence and kowtow in person and admit your mistake. The handwriting was sloppy and the tone was arrogant. There was no signature, but it was not difficult to guess that this was Lu Yi's letter. Chu Luiyue's eyes were cold as she called out to the waiter who was about to leave. Stop. The waiter turned around. Dear guest, do you have any other orders? Chu Luiyue waved the letter in her hand. Who is this Lu Yi? A trace of nervousness flashed across the waiter's face. Chu Luiyue threw a bag over. If you can tell me clearly, there is more. Although the waiter was afraid, he couldn't help but secretly think twice, and the look in his eyes wavered. This person is actually quite famous in Cave Heaven Cliff, and it's all because of his sister. Chu Luiyue threw another bag over. Continue. Money makes the world go round. After Chu Luiyue generously offered, she got a lot of information from the waiter. It turned out that Lu Yi's sister Lu Yue was the current matriarch of the Lin family. Lu Yue originally came from an ordinary family, but she relied on the Lin family and soared. Even her entire Lu family was basking in the glory. Lu Yi was her only brother, and he had always been doted on. That was how he became arrogant, domineering, and presumptuous. Originally, his cultivation talent was not particularly outstanding. It was only thanks to Lu Yuer's efforts that he was finally able to reach the demigod realm by throwing countless good things at him. But this Lu Yi liked to stir up trouble. With this backing, he naturally didn't take others seriously. Usually he took pleasure in robbing others of their treasures. Many people in Cave Heaven Cliff had been taken advantage of by him, but they didn't dare to say anything. After all, the entire Cave Heaven Cliff belonged to the Lin family. Who dared to fight with them? As for the itinerant cultivators like Chu Luiyue who came from outside, he bullied them even more. This time he was annoyed by Chu Luiyue, so he was ruthless and directly blocked all the teleportation formations. It was obvious that he wanted to force Chu Luiyue to bow down. He had forced her into a corner. Before the waiter left, he didn't forget to persuade Chu Luiyue to beg for mercy as soon as possible. Otherwise, her days in Cave Heaven Cliff would become more and more difficult. Chu Luiyue didn't comment. When there was no one else in the room, she directly burned the letter. He wants me to kowtow and apologize? He thinks he's a big shot. Chu Luiyue sneered. Back at ancient Phoenix Mountain, when she met the remnant consciousness of the northern underworld Taizu, she didn't back down. Let alone a mere good-for-nothing rich kid who couldn't be helped. Dugu Mabao looked up slightly, and a faint glow flickered in his beautiful purple eyes. Do you want me to do it? Chu Luiyue shook her head. No need. I have my own way to deal with him. She knew Dugu Mabao had his concerns. Although she didn't know why, she didn't want to trouble him unless it was a critical moment. What way? Dugu Mabao frowned slightly. You won't be a match for him if you rely on yourself. Chu Luiyue curled her lips into a smile. He has a backer. Why don't we find a more powerful backer? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1029. The next morning, Chu Luiyue brought Dugu Mabao to the entrance of the Lin clan. The two of them standing in front of the entrance was very eye-catching. Chu Luiyue stepped forward and bowed politely. Sirs, please inform the Lin clan's patriarch that my daughter, Dugu, would like to see him. The Lin clan's patriarch was naturally the cliff master of Cave Heaven Cliff, Lin Tianfeng. The two guards looked at each other. One of them asked, Do you have an appointment? Chu Luiyue shook her head. No. Do you have an invitation? No. Do you have a letter of recommendation? No. The guard's expression turned ugly. She had nothing, yet she wanted to see him. How bold. He waved his hand impatiently. I won't see anyone who doesn't have that. Chu Luiyue smiled. I know it's rude for me to visit you so suddenly, but I do have an important matter to attend to. Please help me, sirs. It's not a matter of whether we help or not. There are many people who want to see the patriarch. If we inform him of any random person's visit, what will happen? Lin Tianfeng is the most important person in Cave Heaven Cliff. How can you meet him just because you want to? With that, the guard urged her to leave. Chu Luiyue didn't take it to heart and continued. Sirs, you only need to tell him that the Lin clan's patriarch will be willing to see me. The guard seemed to have heard a joke. Oh? Then tell me, what is it? Chu Luiyue put her hands behind her back and said calmly. I can cure fourth young Master Lin's chronic illness. She really said that? Lin Tianfeng was lying on a small bed. When he heard this, he pushed away Lu Yuer's hand that was massaging his temples and stood up abruptly. He looked excited. Lu Yuer's brows furrowed, but she quickly smoothed them out. Although she was already in her 30s, she still looked like a girl in her early 20s because of her good maintenance. Coupled with the mature charm in her eyes, she was indeed very beautiful. However, at this moment, Lin Tianfeng only had the guard's words in his mind. She really has a way to cure Jifei's illness? The guard hurriedly said. Yes, that's what she said. Hurry up. Lin Tianfeng said anxiously. For so many years, his youngest son's health had always been a thorn in his heart. She had tried countless methods to seek medical treatment, but there was no obvious improvement. Naturally, he couldn't contain his excitement. Master, don't be anxious. Since it was related to Jifei, everything had to be done with extra caution. Lu Yuer stood up, leisurely walked to his side and gently advised him. At the very least, shouldn't you at least ask what rank the heavenly doctor is? Right? Look at me, I even forgot about this. Lin Tianfeng clapped his hands and asked. What grade is she? This. She wasn't wearing a celestial physician's robe, so I'm not too sure, but when I heard that she could cure fourth young master, I hurried over. The guard's back was drenched in cold sweat. He had indeed neglected this point, but he could only brace himself and say it. As long as he said it was for the sake of fourth young master, the head of the house wouldn't be so calculative. As expected, Lin Tianfeng frowned when he heard this, but he didn't get angry. Lu Yuer scolded him from the side. What are you doing? You didn't even gather such crucial information and you dare to report it? The guard hurriedly knelt down and admitted his mistake. Lu Yuer stretched out her hand and grabbed Lin Tianfeng's arm. A trace of worry flashed across her face. Master, I know you're doing this for Jifei's sake, but we've met a lot of celestial physician over the years. If we let her in and treat Jifei, then I'm afraid it's not good. Besides, Jifei has always been afraid of strangers. Lin Tianfeng felt a headache coming on. The guard asked tentatively. Then, should I let her go? Lin Tianfeng gritted his teeth. Let her in first. I'll see her in person. No matter what, he had to give it a try. Lu Yuer's face stiffened for a moment, then she quickly lowered her eyes to hide the jealousy in her eyes. He wouldn't even let go of a glimmer of hope. He really cared about Lin Qifei the most. Chu Luyue led Dugu Mabao into the Lin mansion under the guard's lead. As the noblest place in Cave Heaven Cliff, the Lin mansion occupied a vast area and was exquisite and luxurious. Whether it was the pavilions, terraces, or trees, they all exuded a noble aura. In addition, there were many Xian formations set up in the courtyard. Chu Luyue walked along. Although she didn't meet many people, there were many hidden auras. She calmly followed the guard all the way forward and quietly memorized everything she saw in her mind. When she reached the front hall, Lin Tianfeng was already waiting there. Chu Luyue recognized him at a glance. Although he was middle-aged, Lin Tianfeng was graceful and elegant, and it wasn't difficult to see his handsome appearance when he was young. Lin Qifei indeed resembled him. Chu Luyue walked over and bowed. Duguyu greets clan head Lin. Lin Tianfeng looked at her in surprise. He only heard the guard say that it was a woman, but he didn't know that she was so young. At this age, could there really be a way to cure Jifei's illness? Thinking of this, he directly asked, "May I know what grade Miss Dugu is now?" Chu Luyue smiled faintly. 7th grade. Digression. Everything is not going well today, I'm so angry. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1030. As soon as she finished speaking, the hall fell silent. Lin Qianfeng's face became a little stiff. 7th grade. Chu Luyue nodded slightly. She had no problem refining a 7th grade pill now. As for higher grades, she hadn't tried it yet, so it was better not to say for the time being. A mere 7th grade, and you dare to boast that you can cure my son's illness? Lin Tianfeng was so angry that he laughed. He was so excited before, thinking that he had finally met an expert. Who knew? It was just a 7th grade celestial physician. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slightly. A 7th grade celestial physician was definitely an existence that everyone admired in the Tianling dynasty. But here she was obviously not taken seriously at all. Guards, kick her out right now. Lin Tianfeng was full of anger. With a flick of his sleeve he sent someone to do it. Wait. Chu Luyue said calmly. Her voice was very soft, but it carried a kind of pressure and power that couldn't be ignored, making the guards who were about to step forward subconsciously stop in their tracks. Master Lin, just because I'm a 7th grade celestial physician, you won't even give me a chance to try. Are you going to kick me out? A 7th grade celestial physician. You don't even have the qualifications to be the Lin family's celestial physician elder. You want me to give you a chance to try? Lin Qianfeng's face was full of anger, and he couldn't help but snort coldly. In your dreams. The lowest level celestial physician in the Lin family was an 8th grade mid-grade. The strongest one could even refine a 9th grade peak pill. And even they couldn't do anything about Jifei's illness. Why would they care about such a 7th grade celestial physician? Lin Tianfeng even felt that the woman in front of him was here to make a fool of him. He glanced at Dugu Mabao from the corner of his eye. If it weren't for the fact that she had a child, he would have already attacked her. Go. If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for being impolite. Chu Luyue's lips curved up slightly. Patriarch Lin, 4th young Master Lin, was born with a weak constitution and had this illness since birth. But it should have only gotten worse in recent years, right? Lin Tianfeng had already planned to turn around and leave, but when he heard this, his footsteps suddenly stopped. He turned around and looked at Chu Luyue in surprise. Chu Luyue continued. If I'm not wrong, 4th young Master Lin started coughing blood about a year ago. Lin Qianfeng's expression suddenly changed. His eyes were fixed on Chu Luyue as he ordered the guards around him. All of you go down first. Without my permission, no one is allowed to come in. The guards looked at each other in dismay, but they hurriedly responded respectfully. Yes. With that said, the crowd quickly retreated. Soon, only Chu Luyue, Dugu Mabao, and Lin Tianfeng were left in the hall. How did you know? Lin Tianfeng asked with a tense expression. Lin Qifei had been careful to keep the matter of vomiting blood a secret. Almost no one in the residence knew about it. Even he only found out about it by chance half a year ago. This Duguyu was very unfamiliar and looked very ordinary. Logically speaking, it was impossible for her to know about this. Naturally, I could tell. Chu Luyue smiled. There's something that I forgot to tell you. I'm not from Heavenly Cave Cliff, but from outside the world of God. A few days ago, when I was passing by the gate of the world of God, I happened to meet fourth young Master Lin and had a few words with him. At that time he kept coughing so I could tell. Lin Tianfeng was stunned and took a while to react. You're an outsider? Yes. You met Ji Fei before? Yes. You could deduce so much just by listening to his coughing? Of course not. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. At that time, I also took a few more glances at fourth young Master Lin's face. Combining the two, I was able to guess. Lin Tianfeng sucked in a breath of cold air. This woman, did he really have such great ability? One had to know that even the most powerful celestial physician in Heavenly Cave Cliff could not tell anything was wrong with him before personally taking his pulse. Yet, she was able to guess so much just from this brief meeting? Lin Tianfeng did not dare to believe it. But since this woman said that she was an outsider, there was no point in lying. Could it be true? Lin Tianfeng spoke hesitantly but did not know what to say. On one hand, this woman's level was not high, and she was a stranger from outside the world of God. Her background was unknown. On the other hand, she did seem to have some ability. Are you really confident? Lin Tianfeng was a little shaken. Chu Luiyue smiled. Patriarch Lin, this is Heavenly Cave Cliff, the Lin family's territory. No matter how stupid I am, I will not take the initiative to cause trouble in the Lin family. What do you think? When she said that, Lin Tianfeng suddenly felt that it made some sense. She was an outsider with a child. Logically speaking, she did not have any background here. Since she dared to come directly, she most likely had a plan. Lin Tianfeng hesitated for a while before finally gritting his teeth. If that's the case, I'll give you a chance first. You, Master, you can't. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. Chu Luiyue looked back. A woman in a luxurious dress was leisurely walking over. She looked very young and beautiful. Why are you here? Lin Tianfeng was a little surprised. Chu Luiyue lowered his eyes. So this person was Luyu, She should be in her 30s, but he really could not tell at all. No wonder she could climb up to Lin Tianfeng with an ordinary background. Lu Yue went straight to Lin Tianfeng's side. She frowned and asked in a soft voice, Master, I saw that you chased the guards out just now and was worried that something might have happened, so I rushed in. You won't blame me, right? Lin Tianfeng patted her hand. Why would I blame you for such a small matter? Don't think too much. It's just that I'm discussing something with this Miss Dugu. Lu Yuer's gaze turned as if she had just seen Chu Luiyue. When she saw the woman's ordinary face and the child standing next to her, she secretly sighed in relief. These days she had seen countless little bitches who wanted to use the opportunity to climb up the ranks. They really used all kinds of methods. If she had not strictly guarded the position for so many years, how could she have gotten the position of the matriarch? This must be Miss Duguyu. She slowly smiled, her eyes beautiful, but a faint trace of doubt appeared in her heart. This woman seemed to be here to treat Lin Qifei? But looking at her, she didn't seem to be a powerful person. Master, look at Miss Dugu. She's young and has a child. Don't scare her. She said as if she was joking. Lin Tianfeng shook his head. That won't happen. I'm going to ask her to check Jifei's pulse and see what's going on. What? Lu Yue was shocked and blurted out. How can that be? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1031. Her voice was particularly abrupt in the quiet hall. Lin Tianfeng frowned. What, you don't think it's a good idea? Lu Yue knew that she had lost her composure and hurriedly smiled to cover it up. No, master, please don't misunderstand. I just felt a little surprised. This woman didn't seem to be anything special. Why would he agree to let her treat Lin Qifei? To be able to make master agree, this Miss Dugu must be very capable. As she spoke, she glanced at Chu Luiyue. Miss Dugu's celestial physician rank must be very high, right? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. Madam Lin, you flatter me. I'm just a 7th grade celestial physician now. Lu Yuer's eyes widened slightly as if she couldn't believe it. She subconsciously looked at Lin Tianfeng. Lin Tianfeng said, although Miss Dugu is only a 7th grade celestial physician, she's quite capable. Let her give it a try, she might be able to do it. Lu Yue almost thought that Lin Tianfeng was joking. Are you kidding me? A 7th grade celestial physician is qualified to treat Lin Qifei now? She still remembered clearly how Lin Tianfeng had given the family's 8th grade and even 9th grade celestial physician attitude because he couldn't treat Lin Qifei. What was going on now? Master, I know you're worried about Lin Qifei's health, but But we can't just turn to any doctor in a desperate situation. Knowing that Chu Liyue's rank was ordinary, Lu Yue didn't take her seriously anymore. She directly pulled Lin Tianfeng over and said worriedly, This woman's background is unknown. Are you really at ease to let her treat Jifei? You know that Jifei hates strangers the most. If his condition is aggravated, I'm here, what's there to worry about? Lin Tianfeng disapproved of Lu Yue's worries. A young woman with a child and an outsider to boot, what could she do? How could he be afraid in the Lin mansion? But, what's more, she has met Jifei before, so she's not a stranger. This was another important reason why Lin Tianfeng agreed to let her give it a try. Lin Jifei was introverted and reclusive. Even the people of the Lin mansion might not be able to talk to him. Since he was willing to talk to this woman, then there was no harm in letting her try. Lu Yue was secretly shocked. When did this happen? Why didn't she know about it at all? She still wanted to say something, but seeing that Lin Tianfeng had already made up his mind, she tactfully stopped objecting. I'll listen to Master. As long as Jifei can recover, nothing else matters. There was something fishy about this matter. Perhaps in the end, it would all be for naught. Thinking of this, Lu Yue relaxed a little. Lin Tianfeng looked at Chu Liyue. Come with me. As the fourth young master of the Lin mansion, Lin Jifei was of noble status, but he lived in a remote courtyard in the southwest corner of the Lin mansion. Chu Liyue followed Lin Tianfeng for a long time before finally arriving. Standing outside the courtyard, through the moon gate, Chu Liyue saw the green bamboo that occupied half of the courtyard. Seeing Lin Tianfeng arrive, the servant hurriedly came up to greet him. Master. Lin Tianfeng waved his hand and looked inside. Where's Jifei? Master, the fourth young master has been resting in his room for the past 2 days. He's reading right now. Lin Tianfeng nodded. Go and report, just say. I've invited a celestial physician to take a look at him. Over the years, the same situation had happened countless times. The servant who served here had long been used to it. He responded and prepared to go back to report. As he left, he quickly glanced at Chu Liyue standing behind him. He was secretly puzzled. This woman looked unfamiliar. Could the celestial physician that the master had invited be her? But it wasn't up to him to ask, so he quickly left. Not long after, the servant returned. Master, the fourth young master has invited you and the celestial physician in. Lin Tianfeng didn't immediately move. Instead, he looked at Lu Yue beside him. Yue, then, you should go back first. Lu Yue seemed to be used to this and nodded slightly. Chu Liyue watched from the side and finally figured out what was going on. The Lin family was really interesting. As the master of the house, Lin Tianfeng had to announce in advance if he wanted to enter his son's courtyard. And this mistress of the Lin family was even more disliked. She wasn't even allowed to enter the courtyard. Lin Tianfeng nodded comfortingly. You've been wholeheartedly serving Jifei all these years. He just doesn't understand now. Sooner or later, he'll accept you. Lu Yue's face carried a bit of forbearance and grievance, but she still smiled gently. Master is right. Hurry and bring Miss Dugu in. Yue will take her leave. After he finished speaking, he bowed and left. Lin Tianfeng sighed, seeming a little apologetic, and then stepped in. Let's go. Chu Liyue pulled Dugu Mabao and followed closely behind. When they arrived at the room, Lin Jifei was reading. Hearing the noise, he stood up. Father. You and I don't need to bow in private. Sit down. Lin Tianfeng quickly walked over. Lin Jifei nodded slightly, then looked at Chu Liyue behind him. He was slightly startled. It's you? Although this face was very ordinary, it had a pair of black jade-like eyes. Coupled with the purple-haired and purple-eyed child beside him, it was hard for him not to remember. Chu Liyue smiled and bowed. Dugu greets fourth young master. Seeing that the two of them knew each other, Lin Tianfeng felt a little relieved. Lin Jifei suddenly realized something. You are the celestial physician that father invited? Chu Liyue blinked. Actually, I came to visit of my own accord. Thanks to fourth young master's help last time, I haven't had a chance to thank you properly. So this time I came specially to help fourth young master. Lin Jifei was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He glanced at Lin Tianfeng. This Dugu was an outsider. Father actually agreed to let her treat him. Could she be a powerful person? Don't waste your time. Lin Jifei's thin lips curved into a faint smile, but his light-colored eyes were full of alienation and coldness. I know my own body's condition. I've already tried so many methods but none of them worked. He didn't think that the woman in front of him could do anything. Chu Luiyue wasn't discouraged. Fourth young master, you won't know until you try, right? Lin Tianfeng couldn't help but persuade him in a low voice. Yes. Jifei, father knows that you don't want to cause trouble. If it was an ordinary celestial physician, father wouldn't have let her come. This woman does have some skills. Let her take your pulse first and we'll talk about the rest later. How about it? Hearing Lin Tianfeng's words, Lin Qifei couldn't refuse. He paused for a moment then finally nodded. All right. Chu Luiyue stepped forward. Lin Tianfeng first handed over a handkerchief and placed it on Lin Qifei's wrist. Chu Luiyue didn't mind and gently placed his white and slender fingers on it. Digression, I'm so tired. I accidentally gave out the second chapter for free again. Everyone clear the cache and take a look. Chapter 1032. The room was completely silent. Chu Luiyue held his breath and channeled a strand of force into Lin Qifei's body. This strand of force was extremely thin and pure, and its perception was extremely sharp. Lin Qifei's Yuan Meridian was also a Daijing Yuan Meridian, and it was even a high-grade one. He could definitely be considered a genius among geniuses. However, for some reason the flow of force in his body was not smooth, as if it was blocked by something. Chu Luiyue continued to investigate, and only then did he realize that there seemed to be something scattered around his Yuan Meridian like balls. The existence of these things was like huge rocks in a stream, blocking the flow of water. Although it did not completely block the flow of force, it was still a great resistance. It was also because of this that Lin Qifei's aura was always weak, even though he was very strong. These strange things were also deposited in his 5 viscera, especially his lungs. This was also the main reason he was coughing up blood. Chu Luiyue thoroughly checked the condition of his body, and only then did he withdraw the force and release his hand. How is it? Lin Tianfeng, who had been waiting nervously at the side, quickly asked. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. The situation is worse than I expected. Lin Tianfeng's expression froze. What does this mean? Chu Luiyue glanced at Lin Qifei. What I mean is, fourth young master, to be able to hold on until now is really amazing. She guessed that Lin Qifei's body had been ill for a long time, and it would be more troublesome to treat. However, she did not expect that at this stage, he would still look so calm and normal. She could only say that he was too good at pretending. She did not know if it was because he did not want others to see his real condition or, really? Lin Tianfeng looked at Lin Qifei. Jifei, is what she said true? Lin Qifei smiled, his expression calm. Miss Dugu is exaggerating, I'm fine. If you don't treat the condition of your body in time, you have at most 3 years left. Chu Luiyue interrupted him. Fourth young master, as you said, you should be aware of your own body's condition, right? Lin Tianfeng suddenly stood up. Whoosh, bang. His movements were so violent that he knocked the chair over and landed heavily on the ground. How is this possible? 3 years. Nonsense. He said fiercely. Back then, the elders clearly said that as long as I take care of it, there wouldn't be any major problems. Chu Luiyue was calm. Master Lin, fourth young master knows best whether it's true or not, right? Lin Jifei pursed his lips and didn't speak. Fourth young master, Lin Qianfeng's is Lin based on his of course if he was injured. Of course it would be difficult. His body had long since become an empty shell. Hearing this, Lin Qifei's expression finally changed. He stared at Chu Luiyue, his face extremely pale. Seeing his expression, how could Lin Tianfeng not understand? Jifei you? His voice choked, his heart in pain. After taking a few deep breaths, he looked at Chu Luiyue weakly. All right, I only have one question for you. Are you still confident in treating Jifei's illness? None of the elders were able to detect Jifei's condition, only Duguyu was able to do so. Other than her, there was no one else who could solve this problem. Master Lin, please calm down. When I came, I said that I would cure fourth young master's illness. Of course it's the same now. It's just a little troublesome. Lin Tianfeng looked as if he had seen the light. It's okay if it's troublesome. As long as you have a way. Everything else is not a problem. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly as if she was worried about something. The light in Lin Jifei's eyes gradually dimmed when he heard her say that she had a way. He laughed bitterly and said lightly. It's okay. It's already very impressive that you can see my condition. Regardless of whether it can be cured in the end, I am very grateful to you. My body has been weak since I was born. After living for so many years, it's already quite good. Lin Qianfeng's heart felt stifled. He wanted to comfort him, but when he saw Lin Qifei's expression that seemed to have seen through life and death, his throat tightened and his nose twitched. He could not say anything. There's something that I need to trouble Miss Dugu with. Not many people know about my condition. I hope that Miss Dugu can keep it a secret in the future. Don't? No, I'm not worried about this. Chu Liwei shook her head carelessly. I'm thinking about other problems. Lin Tianfeng and Lin Qifei were both stunned. Miss Dugu, if you have any difficulties, just tell me. As long as I can help, I will do my best. As long as she could cure Ji Fei, nothing else mattered. Chu Liwei sighed softly. Please don't misunderstand. I'm worried because fourth young master's body needs too much time to recuperate. I'm just passing by Heavenly Cave Cliff this time, so I don't have much time to stay here. Lin Tianfeng and Lin Qifei were stunned. They never thought that Chu Liwei was thinking about this. If Miss Dugu is not in a hurry, how about you stay here for a while? Lin Tianfeng asked tentatively. If there's anything we can do, just tell us. Chu Liwei shook her head and politely refused. I'm really sorry. This matter is very important to me, so I'm afraid I can't stay here for too long, Master. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from outside the courtyard. Lin Tianfeng's expression turned solemn as he walked out. What's wrong? Because he was disturbed, his expression was not very good. The guard who came to report shrank and quickly knelt down. At the same time, he handed over the things in his hands with both hands. Master, there's a letter saying that the Holy Sun's birthday is coming soon. They're asking if we're going to give up on the consort selection because we haven't gone there yet. Chu Liwei, who was sitting in the room, suddenly paused. She slowly raised her head and looked outside the door. Holy Sun? Birthday? Consort selection? Digression. 6 p.m. Yesterday's update did not refresh. Everyone clear the cache and take a look. There are already a few long comments. Deliberating, there are only a few days left. Chapter 1033. Lin Tianfeng sighed. Sigh, of course we have to go. It's just that Heavenly Cave Cliff only has one level 1 teleportation formation, and it broke down at this critical juncture. That's why we're delayed. If we want to fix it, we'll need 2 more days. You may leave first. I'll personally write a letter to explain the reason behind this. Yes. Hearing this, the guard hurriedly left. Lin Tianfeng stood in the courtyard for a while before turning to return to the house. His brows were tightly knitted. He was clearly worried about this series of events. On the one hand, the Holy Sun's birthday banquet was getting closer and closer. If they delayed any longer, it would not be good. Heavenly Cave Cliff's status was not high to begin with. If they made another mistake at this critical juncture, it would be one disaster after another. On the other hand, he had just learned about Lin Qifei's physical condition, which made him even more upset. He walked in front of the two and looked at Chu Liwei with a worried expression. Miss Dugu, look, can't you make an exception? As long as you can cure Ji Fei, the Lin family will definitely treat you as an honored guest in the future. Lin Qifei lowered his eyes, his expression indifferent. Whether he lives or dies, it's fate. Father, don't force Miss Dugu. It's not that there's no way. Chu Liwei suddenly spoke. Lin Tianfeng's eyes lit up. Miss Dugu, please speak. Chu Liwei smiled and asked in a seemingly casual manner. I just heard that Master Lin seems to be going to the Holy Sun's birthday banquet? Lin Tianfeng paused but did not hide it. That's right. Many people knew about this matter now, so there was nothing that could not be said. Chu Liwei's expression did not change, but the hands in her sleeves slowly clenched. She asked word by word. May I know the Holy Sun's name? Is it Rongxiu? Miss Dugu, be careful with your words. Lin Tianfeng's eyes suddenly widened, and he subconsciously shouted. How can we call the Holy Sun's name casually? Chu Liwei's heart sank. As expected, this Holy Sun is indeed Rongxiu. Then, it seems that the birthday banquet and consort selection are all true? Chu Liwei was silent for a moment, then she suddenly laughed. So, when he said that he had something to do back then, he was talking about these? Patriarch Lin, please don't mind me. I was just asking casually. I didn't mean to offend you. Chu Liwei leaned against the chair and lightly tapped the armrest with a smile on her lips. However, Dugu Mabao, who was sitting beside her, could clearly feel the cold aura that she was exuding. He raised his eyebrows slightly, and a faint light flashed through his demonic purple eyes. He was to, of course, Lin, as Master used to. So, if Master Lin and fourth young master don't mind, why don't we go together? That way we won't delay our business, and on the other hand I can keep an eye on fourth young master's health and help him recover as soon as possible. What do you think? Lin Tianfeng thought for a moment and he was a little tempted. That was indeed a good idea. He looked at Chu Luiwei in surprise. Miss Dugu is going there too? That wasn't a place that just anyone could go. Moreover, Dugu was an outsider. It would be even more difficult for her to go. May I know the purpose of Miss Dugu's trip? Lin Tianfeng didn't want to get into trouble. An idea popped up in Chu Luiwei's mind as she suddenly glanced at Dugu Mabao beside her. Dugu Mabao thought to himself, oh no. Chu Luiwei's eyes reddened and she said in a low voice, I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but this time I brought Debeo here alone because. Before she could finish, she covered her face with her sleeves and sobbed. Dugu Mabao's eyelids twitched violently. He clenched his little fists tightly. If not for the last bit of rationality in him, he would have exploded on the spot. Lin Tianfeng and Lin Qifei looked at each other and saw that Dugu Mabao's usually expressionless face had a ripple of emotion. Excited? Angry? We were in love, but he said he had something to do and had to leave for a while. But after waiting for a long time he didn't come back, so I thought to bring Debeo along to look for him. The father and son looked at each other and understood. So she was here to look for the child's father. I don't know anything about his background. I only heard him say something like, Saint, but I don't know anything about his identity. So, if Master Lin and fourth young master can help me this time, Dugu will be very grateful. Chu Luiwei spoke tirelessly. Although it was only a few short sentences, each and every word was filled with sadness and grievance. Anyone who heard it could empathize and be moved. Lin Qifei's eyes rippled. Miss Dugu? What's the surname of the person you're looking for? Perhaps I should call you madam? Chu Luiwei smiled bitterly. The two of you can call me as before. Who knows, if his name is real or fake? Lin Tianfeng stroked his beard. They did occasionally send people to carry out missions outside the Divine Ruins world. Perhaps some soldier had let Dugu down. He didn't want to get involved in such a dispute, but Ji Fei couldn't do without her. After hesitating for a while, Lin Tianfeng said, Miss Dugu, your idea isn't impossible. But there's one thing. I hope that after you reach the place, you can wait for us to finish our business before you consider looking for him. As compensation, we can also send people to help you look for him. How about it? As long as they could attend the birthday banquet smoothly, then look for him in private without making a big deal out of it, it would be fine. Chu Luiwei smiled slowly. Then Debeo and I will thank Patriarch Lin and fourth young master here. Don't worry whether we can find him or not, Debeo and I won't cause you any trouble. As she spoke, she gave Dugu Mabao a look. Debeo, why aren't you thanking her? Dugu Mabao took a deep breath and closed his eyes in despair. Debeo? Debeo? Chu Luiwei shook his hand. Dugu Mabao forced his eyes open, and every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Thank you. Although there was something wrong with his complexion, it was fortunate that he was a meaty ball to begin with. Coupled with his cute voice, no one could tell that there was anything wrong with him. Instead, it only made the Lin father and son feel that he was holding a grudge against this irresponsible father. Thinking of this, Lin Qifei sighed softly. It's always hard to be a mother. Chu Luiwei smiled awkwardly. Considering Dugu Mabao, whose aura was already frighteningly low, she didn't reply in the end. Then it's settled. For the sake of convenience, when we go there, you will be Ji Fei's personal attendant. Lin Tianfeng said. Otherwise, rashly adding people is not allowed. Chu Luiwei nodded gratefully. Thank you, Patriarch Lin, thank you, fourth young master. Chapter 1034. After the two sides reached an agreement, Chu Luiwei breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, she wanted to find a backer to deal with Lu Yi, but she didn't expect to get the opportunity to go with them through the level 1 teleportation formation. In this case, the whole thing was meaningless and she didn't have to take Lu Yi's threats and intimidation to heart. Thus, Chu Luiwei began to focus on helping Lin Qifei recuperate. The illness in the fourth young master's body has been delayed for a long time. If you want to completely solve it, you must be ruthless. Unfortunately, his body is very weak now, and he needs to recover for a while before officially starting. Chu Luiwei said, took a pen from the side and wrote down a prescription. I'll have to trouble the Lin family head to collect the herbs according to this prescription for refining medicine. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly took it. He first glanced at it and recognized that there were indeed many herbs on it that nourished blood and qi, so he nodded. Okay. These things are available in the residence, I'll send someone to get them. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Most of the herbs on the prescription were common herbs, but there were also some very precious and rare heaven and earth treasures. Lin Tianfeng said that they had them in the residence, which showed that they had a deep foundation. In the end, it was a clan of the Divine Ruins world. Patriarch Lin, what I mean is, please go in person, don't let others do it. Chu Luiyue smiled. Seeing that you are familiar with these herbs, it shouldn't be difficult, right? The reason why Lin Tianfeng recognized these things was because he had worried too much about Lin Qifei over the years. He had almost become half a celestial physician. Hearing Chu Luiyue's words, he was a little confused and pointed to himself. It's not difficult. But, why do I have to do it personally? Suddenly, his expression changed. You mean, someone will do something to these herbs? I'm a celestial physician, and the news of me coming to treat the fourth young master has probably spread by now. Although fourth young master was born with this illness, it shouldn't have been this serious. It's obvious that someone did something to it. Chu Luiyue wanted to say something but hesitated. He fixed his gaze on Lin Tianfeng and saw him frown. I don't know anything else. I only know that you treat fourth young master with sincerity. Therefore, it is only safe to take the medicine from you. After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Lin Qifei raised his eyes slightly and gave Chu Luiyue a meaningful look. She was rather smart. She had just arrived at the Lin mansion not long ago and had already deduced so many things after taking his pulse once. I understand. Lin Tianfeng said, then turned and left. Of course, he wasn't worried about what Chu Luiyue would do. That was because other than him, there were many other experts guarding the courtyard. Furthermore, after their conversation, he had developed an indescribable trust towards that woman. This time he could only take a gamble. After Lin Tianfeng left, Chu Luiyue looked at Lin Qifei again. If fourth young master doesn't mind, may I try to treat you first? Lin Qifei didn't say anything but extended his thin and pale wrist. He hesitated for a moment and didn't put on the handkerchief beside him. Chu Luiyue took his pulse and quickly glanced at him. The father and son were very cautious when taking pulses. Clearly they had suffered in this area before. It wasn't hard to imagine how he had spent the past few years with his body in this state. However, these thoughts only flashed through her mind. Chu Luiyue quickly held her breath and focused, then separated a stream of force and injected it into his body. This time she split out a bit more origin power than before. As it flowed through Lin Qifei's Yuan meridian, Chu Luiyue deliberately controlled her own force and hit the thing that was attached to it. Hiss! Lin Qifei cried out in pain, his face instantly pale. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Is it very painful? Lin Qifei pursed his lips and shook his head. It's fine, you can continue. Chu Luiyue nodded. Bear with it. Then she tried a second time. This time, Lin Qifei's expression was still enduring, but he didn't make any sound. As for that strange thing, under the impact of this force, it suddenly ran to the side. Chu Luiyue's mind moved, and the force instantly transformed into a scarlet flame. It quickly chased after it. A scorching pain instantly spread through his body. Lin Qifei's face instantly flushed red. The veins on his forehead bulged. At this moment, the flame had already filled up the Yuan meridian at an incomparably rapid pace. The raging fire burned. In a daze, Chu Luiyue even heard an ear-piercing scream. Soon, the ball-like thing on the Yuan meridian fell off one by one and was burned to ashes by the flame. Ugh! Lin Qifei finally couldn't help but groan. Chu Luiyue glanced at him from the corner of her eye and saw that his forehead was covered in sweat and his lips were deathly pale. Only then did she retract the flame. The moment she released her hand, Lin Qifei finally heaved a heavy sigh and collapsed weakly on the chair. It looked as if he had been fished out of the water and was in a very sorry state. Chu Luiyue sighed. This was just a simple test, but it had already made him so uncomfortable. It would take a lot of effort to completely cure him. Let's stop here for today. Fourth young master, rest well. This old illness can't be rushed. Lin Qifei nodded. Thank you. Although the pain in his body was unbearable, he did feel a subtle change. This gave him a glimmer of hope in his heart. Perhaps, the woman in front of him could really cure him. Fourth young master has helped us before. We are just returning the favor. Fourth young master, you don't have to mind. We won't disturb you for now. With that, Chu Luiyue left with Dugu Mabao. After the two figures completely disappeared, Lin Qifei slowly closed his eyes. After a while, a voice came from the side. Fourth young master, do you need us to warn Lu Yi? Lu Yuer would help suppress the things that Lu Yi did, and rarely would it reach Lin Tianfeng's ears. But yesterday Lu Yi sent people to block the level 2 and 3 teleportation formations, intending to lock Duguyu and her son in the city. It had already caused quite a ruckus and they just had to ask around to find out. Lin Qifei waved his hand. No need. This time he finally met his nemesis. Let him do as he pleases. Yes. Moreover, the Lu family has taken advantage of our Lin family. We might as well take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of them together. Fourth young master has always been a strategist. This time it's mainly because of Duguyu. Lin Qifei smiled. She's also a smart person. Without her help he really wouldn't have this opportunity. More importantly, his body, if he could really recover, with such ability, I don't know what her husband is thinking. Probably blind. Chapter 1035. When Chu Luiyue brought Dugu Mabao back to the inn, it was already night time. For the sake of convenience and also to keep it a secret, the two of them booked a room. Chu Luiyue wanted to let him have the bed, but Dugu Mabao rejected her outright. According to him, his divine body had already been formed. Even if he did not eat or sleep for a month, there would be no problem. Therefore at night, Chu Luiyue took the big bed, and Dugu Mabao stayed on the small couch at the side. The two of them had always been at peace. However, today when Dugu Mabao came back, he flew straight to the small couch and sat cross-legged. Then he stared at Chu Luiyue with a cold expression. Chu Luiyue had just closed the door when she turned around and saw a purple dumpling emitting cold air. Cough. Chu Luiyue looked away guiltily and moved to the side, wanting to put this matter behind her. However, Dugu Mabao did not let her do as she wished. How long do you plan to use this identity? Dugu Mabao asked coldly. Chu Luiyue rubbed her temples and smiled awkwardly at him. Debeo, look, I have no choice. If not, we don't know how long we'll be trapped here. Moreover, I've never admitted that we're mother and son. Meeting Dugu Mabao's cold gaze, Chu Luiyue immediately stopped and changed the topic. Don't worry, when we reach the place and reveal our identities, the truth will be revealed. Actually, she had never taken the initiative to admit that she was Debeo's mother, nor did she say that the person she was looking for was Debeo's father. She just changed the way she said it, and they automatically made the connection and misunderstood. Alright, Debeo, don't be angry, okay? Chu Luiyue put her palms together and smiled brightly. Seeing her like this, the remaining anger in Debeo's heart quickly dissipated. He turned his face away. There won't be a next time. I knew Debeo was the best. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but rush over, wanting to rub his chubby little face. Dugu Mabao seemed to have sensed something and turned to look at her. Chu Luiyue's hand was just inches away. Her movements suddenly froze. The two of them were silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue made up his mind and quickly pinched his cheeks, pulling a big smile on his face. Why are you pulling a long face all the time? It's better to smile more. After saying that, Chu Luiyue hurriedly picked up the shattered pieces of will to live and retreated at an even faster speed. I'm going to cultivate now. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already sat down cross-legged, and a red flame lingered in his palm. Dugu Mabao stared blankly and instinctively reached out to touch the spot where she had just pinched. There seemed to be a trace of warmth left by her fingers. A dark color flashed across his beautiful, almost demonic purple eyes. Although he had changed his physical body, his personality hadn't changed much. She was probably the only one who had the guts and arrogance to say such things to him. She was like that in the past and she was like that now. Dugu Mabao looked at her quietly for a while, and the indifferent coldness in his eyes gradually melted. After a moment, he turned his gaze and looked at the mirror beside him. A strange yet familiar face was reflected in the bronze mirror. His eyes flashed. This face was indeed that of a child, but it was indeed the face of him in the past. He stared at the person in the mirror for a while. The little person in the mirror was also staring at him. Her expression was cold, her eyes were cold, and there was a faint trace of heavy pressure. It looked like it was indeed a little unpleasant. His heart skipped a beat, and he tried to make the corners of his mouth curl up slowly. It was a little stiff. It was very unfamiliar. Dugu Mabao felt uncomfortable in his heart, and for a moment he was a little angry. This smile wasn't good at all, it was completely different from the bright smile on her face. She just asked him to smile more, but who would like such a smile? He pursed his lips and was about to look away, but after hesitating for a while, he couldn't help but look back. After struggling for a long time, he finally pulled the corners of his mouth and changed to a smile. This time was different from the last time. Unfortunately, it looked even weirder. Dugu Mabao resisted the urge to smash the mirror. Just as he was hesitating whether to try again, he suddenly heard a sound behind him. He panicked and hurriedly lifted the blanket, crawled under it and turned his back, pretending to be asleep. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes and saw this scene. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Debeo, what's wrong?" Dugu Mabao's muffled voice came from under the blanket. "I'm going to sleep, don't disturb me." Chu Luiyue replied with an "oh." Looking at the small bump on the small bed, Chu Luiyue finally couldn't help but remind him softly. "But didn't you say that the divine body doesn't fear the cold and heat, and even if it's sleeping it doesn't need a blanket?" Dugu Mabao fell into a dead silence. After a while, Dugu Mabao finally bit the bullet and lifted the blanket. His short purple hair was messed up and his ears still had a trace of redness that had not faded away. He said fiercely, "Let's go. Looks like you don't want to sleep. Great, I'll practice with you today." The next morning, the morning sun shone into the room. The two of them sat facing each other, and there was a chessboard outlined with silver lines between them. The red dots on the chessboard were Chu Luiyue's chess pieces, and the purple ones were Dugu Mabao's. The battle was fierce. Oh no, it should be said that the red chess pieces were being slaughtered by the purple chess pieces. Dugu Mabao waved his small hand and a purple dot fell. Boom. A purple light suddenly appeared. In an instant, it enveloped the entire chessboard. In the blink of an eye, the red chess pieces were completely destroyed. When all the light gradually dissipated, Dugu Mabao looked at Chu Luiyue. Round 372, I won. Chu Luiyue supported herself on the armrest of the chair, panting heavily. She was sweating profusely, and the force in her body was almost exhausted. She couldn't help but say with a sad face, You won every round. Why are you counting so clearly?" "Of course, it's to let you know how weak you are now," Dugu Mabao said calmly. "However, your improvement is also very obvious. You've made 23 moves in this round, which is much better than the start." Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched. "Thank you for the compliment, but it's not necessary." It was better not to compliment her. 23 moves? She had never been defeated so miserably in the hands of someone before. She rubbed her sore neck and couldn't help but glance at Dugu Mabao. "Speaking of which, Debeo, I didn't expect you to be a Shen master too. What level are you now?" Previously, she only knew that Dugu Mabao's combat strength was very strong, but she didn't know that his cultivation level was so high as well. At the very least, it was the first time she had seen it in her life. Dugu Mabao said straightforwardly, "Now you just need to know that I'm higher than you." Chu Luiyue was speechless. "Let's go. It's time for us to go to the Lin residence." As she spoke, she stood up. At this moment there was a sudden commotion outside. Then the door was suddenly kicked open. "Dugu, get out here." Chapter 1036. Following this angry roar, two figures barged in from outside. Chu Luiyue raised his eyes and looked at the newcomers. They were two burly men dressed in black. Their muscles bulged exaggeratedly, and their faces were fierce and ferocious. Outside the door, the waiter looked at them nervously. He seemed to be worried, but he did not dare to come forward. Chu Luiyue saw this and immediately understood the identity of the newcomers. "Lu Yi's men?" Chu Luiyue asked coldly. "Hey, these little girls had some eyesight." One of the men spoke in a deep voice. When it reached her ears, it was as if her heart was being smashed by something. Both of them were stronger than her. Chu Luiyue quickly judged the situation in front of her. While quietly protecting Dugu Mabao behind her, she quickly circulated the force in her body and sneered. "He has already ordered us not to use the teleportation portal at Grotto Heaven Cliff. Isn't that enough? How far does he want to push us before he gives up? Oomph. You offended someone you shouldn't offend and still want to escape unscathed. How can there be such a good thing?" The other man next to him sneered. "Our big brother doesn't have that much patience." It turned out that Lu Yi originally thought that after all the teleportation portals were sealed, Dugu would definitely kowtow and apologize. But he did not expect that after waiting for a day and a night, he did not even see half a shadow. This made him even angrier. Dugu was different from the others. She was an outsider. It was harder for her to survive here than others. There was no way she didn't know about this. However, even at this point she was still stubbornly holding on without showing any expression. This made Lu Yi feel very embarrassed. After all, the matter had already been blown out of proportion. Many people at Grotto Heaven Cliff knew that he was targeting Dugu. If he still could not get rid of her after such a long time, where would he put his dignity in the future? Therefore Lu Yi could not take this lying down and directly sent people to the door. "Come with us." Chu Luiyue calmed himself down. I'm sorry, but I have something important to do today. Please forgive me for not being able to travel with you. Although her voice was very soft, her tone was very firm and did not allow for rejection. This attitude immediately angered the other party. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. I'll teach you a good lesson today. Before he finished speaking, a burly man had already rushed over. He punched out. The wind from the fist whistled. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of him. Chu Luiyue quickly set up a barrier in front of him. Boom. The barrier only lasted for a moment before it began to crack. Taking advantage of this brief moment, Chu Luiyue pulled up his dugu mabao and jumped out of the window behind him. The two figures instantly disappeared. Chase. People came and went on the streets. Chu Luiyue and Wang Chang's sudden jump down attracted a lot of attention. Over there. Chu Luiyue had just stood still when he heard a loud shout from not far away. She quickly glanced in that direction. Dugu mabao whispered, 3 people in the north and 2 in the south. Their strength is above a rank 8 warrior. It turned out that Lu Yi had directly sent a group of people to surround and intercept her. This road was to the north and south and now her path was completely blocked. Let's see where you can run to. At this moment the 2 people upstairs also jumped down together. Just these alone there were already a total of 8 people. Chu Luiyue's mind raced, gritted his teeth and headed west. This Lu Yi really thinks highly of me. Chu Luiyue sneered as he moved forward at full speed. He already knows that you can teleport, so naturally he will be more vigilant against you. Dugu Mabao knew that the situation was urgent and did not care about being hugged by Chu Luiyue again. He put this account on Lu Yi's head. Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao went all the way and the people on the street all dodged. Behind them, Chu Luiyue had already heard the sound of those people chasing after them. Everyone had different expressions, but no one wanted to come up to help. Instead they all avoided them like snakes and scorpions. Chu Luiyue sneered, but he was not surprised. They must know that these were Lu Yi's people, so who would dare to provoke them? Originally he thought that they would not go too far in the downtown area. But now it seemed that this path would not work. Lu Yi, together with his subordinates, were very arrogant. They did not put these in their eyes at all. Since this didn't work then, he had to find another way. Chu Luiyue's thoughts moved, and he directly turned around and headed towards the small street. Damn it! How can this woman be so fast? At first they did not put Chu Luiyue in their eyes. After all, there were so many of them. Moreover, even if Chu Luiyue could enter the Void God realm, his strength was not weak. It would be inconvenient for him to bring a child with him. They did not expect that after chasing for a while, they were still a distance away from Chu Luiyue. Don't worry, she won't be able to escape. This heavenly cave cliff is full of our people. She will fall sooner or later. Her speed seems to be slower than before. Chase after her. The surrounding noise gradually dissipated, and Chu Luiyue entered a remote and quiet place. At this time the people behind had already caught up. One of them directly attacked and threw out a force. Chu Luiyue hurriedly dealt with it. Then, like a headless fly, he crawled into an alley. You're courting death. When the people chasing after him saw this, they looked at each other and laughed proudly. Swoosh, swoosh. The group of people divided into 2 groups and attacked from the front and back. Chu Luiyue entered the alley and seemed to realize that something was wrong. Just as he was about to turn around and retreat, the entrance of the alley was already blocked. Where do you think you're going? A few burly men lined up in a row, easily blocking her way. Chu Luiyue's expression changed slightly. Then he quickly looked behind him and saw a few people quickly appearing behind him. They had completely surrounded him in this narrow and quiet alley. The atmosphere fell into a stalemate. The man in the lead looked down at Chu Luiyue. Do you want to leave by yourself, or do you want us to bring you away? Chu Luiyue paused. What if I don't choose? You don't know what's good for you. Seeing that Chu Luiyue was not going to give in, they lost their patience. The man in the lead waved his hand. Take her back. As long as she's still alive. After saying that, the few of them were about to attack when they saw the woman suddenly smile. Her smile was light and bright, and her eyes were like stars. It made her originally very ordinary face look lively and beautiful. Are you guys coming one by one or together? Hearing this, the few men were stunned. Then one of them sneered as if he had heard a joke. You want to fight us? With just you? Chu Luiyue tilted his head. With just me? Chapter 1037. Lu Yi was waiting in his mansion, bored to death. It's been so long, why haven't they come back yet? He glanced at the sky and asked impatiently. A young woman serving next to him hurriedly said, maybe they were delayed by something. It's just catching someone back, what can be delayed? Louis didn't think so. They didn't do their job well, I must teach them a lesson when they come back. The woman saw that he was about to get angry, so she followed his words and said softly, they are your subordinates. What do you want to do, how do you want to deal with them, isn't it just a matter of a word? It's not worth getting angry over this. Hearing her say this, Louis's mood improved a little, and he touched the woman's waist with an evil smile. Pan, you are the most obedient, the most pleasing to this young master. Pan, smiled gently and shyly, leaning into his arms. Young master, you are someone who will do great things in the future. Isn't it degrading to argue with them? Just the fact that you can go to that place to participate in the Holy Son's birthday banquet, I don't know how many people envy you. Hearing this, Louis, who was still smiling, frowned and pushed her to the ground. Pan, cried out in pain and looked up in panic only to see his gloomy face. She asked timidly, Young master, what's wrong with you? Louis swept the tea set on the table next to him to the ground. Don't mention it. Last night, the Lin mansion sent a message, saying that I can't go. Panner's eyes widened. Why is this? Didn't we agree before? Louis sneered and cursed. It's all because of that sick man. He said that he wanted to bring an extra celestial physician to take care of him. The quota at Cave Heaven Cliff is limited, so that old man Lin Tianfeng directly replaced me. In fact, according to his identity and qualifications, he was not qualified to go. Lu Yuer helped him for a long time in the middle, and finally helped him get this opportunity. He didn't expect that when he was about to leave, there would be another accident. The father and son have long disliked me, especially that Lin Qifei. This time he must be the one behind it. Logically speaking, an evil creature who had cursed his own mother to death should have died long ago. Who would have thought that with this delay he would actually survive until now? And Lin Tianfeng just had to treat him the best. If it wasn't for him, my sister wouldn't have stayed in the Lin family for so many years without giving birth to a son. The more Louis spoke, the angrier he got. His chest seemed to be burning with rage. Pan fell to the ground, trembling, not daring to say a word. Louis took a deep breath and suddenly sneered. However, he won't be complacent for long. Young master. Not good. At this moment, a panicked voice suddenly came from outside the courtyard. A pale-faced manservant ran over and knelt down in front of Louis, pointing outside. Young master. Bad news. Outside the door, Louis kicked him. Speak properly. The manservant felt a dull pain in his chest, but he didn't dare to make a sound. Young master, they are back. They are now at the door, outside the door. You should go and see for yourself. Louis finally realized that something was wrong and immediately lifted his foot to walk outside. When he walked straight all the way to the gate, he saw a few boxes placed outside the door at a glance. The boxes were unlocked and seemed to have been opened by someone. At the edge he could vaguely see some blood stains. As for the guards who were in charge of guarding the door, they were all standing to the side in fear. It was as if there was something terrifying in the box. Louis's heart sank. Open the box, he ordered in a deep voice. The guards looked at each other and finally stepped forward together and carefully opened the box. Patter. The box was opened. When he saw what was inside, Louis's pupils shrank. The people inside were none other than the few people he had sent out. Taking a closer look, there were exactly 8 of them. At this time they were all covered in blood and stuffed into the box in a strange posture. It was a ghastly sight. Young master, they are not dead yet, but, one of the guards braced himself and said, but, their tendons have been cut off. I'm afraid they will be crippled in the future. This was even crueler and more ruthless than directly killing someone. Death would be the end of everything and people like them would be crippled from now on. That would only make them suffer more pain and torture. Louis's face was ashen and he could not believe it. It went without saying how they got injured. It must be that Dugiyu who did it. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles almost cracked. Dugiyu, you are courting death. When Chu Luiyue arrived at the gate of the Lin mansion, a guard greeted her with a smile. Miss Duga, you are finally here. Master and 4th young master have been waiting for you for a long time. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. There was a little trouble on the way, so I was delayed for a while. It's fine. Please come in. With that, the guard quickly led Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao into the mansion. After a smooth journey, they finally arrived at Lin Qifei's courtyard. As soon as they entered, Lin Tianfeng and Lin Qifei both looked over. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly said, "Miss Dugu, the herbs are all prepared and they are all here. See if there is anything missing." Chu Luiyue walked over with a smile. "Master Lin personally prepared the herbs, so there will naturally be no problem. Next, let's start refining." Lin Tianfeng hurriedly nodded. Lin Qifei's nose twitched as he sniffed. He looked up at Chu Luiyue. "What a strong smell of blood. Digression. It's the end of the month, don't forget to vote. We will continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1038. Chu Luiyue seemed to sense something. She looked up at him and smiled. "Fourth young master, what's wrong?" Looking at that pair of clear eyes, Lin Qifei withdrew his line of sight and shook his head gently. "Nothing. I'll have to trouble Miss Dugu for my condition." Chu Luiyue smiled deeply. "Fourth young master, you're welcome." She walked over to check Lin Qifei's pulse. "Before I go into refined pills, I'd like to check on fourth young master's condition." Lin Qifei stretched out his hand. His sleeve, embroidered with bamboo leaves, was pulled up slightly, revealing a slender, white wrist. One could even see the veins on it. Chu Luiyue raised her hand. Lin Tianfeng suddenly handed over a handkerchief and was about to put it on his wrist. Lin Qifei raised his eyes and glanced at him. He said indifferently, "Thank you, father. But since I've already agreed to Miss Dugu's help, there's no need for this." Lin Tianfeng was stunned. Surprise flashed across his eyes. "You said, no need? But didn't he hate being touched the most? Because there was once someone who pretended to be a celestial physician and took advantage of the opportunity to take his pulse." Lin Qifei had been very cautious in this regard ever since. But now, he actually trusted Dugu so much? Lin Tianfeng was puzzled. But seeing his calm expression, he didn't continue and put away the handkerchief. Okay then please continue, Miss Dugu." Chu Luiyue didn't seem to notice the confrontation between father and son. She smiled faintly and stretched out her hand to check his pulse. Compared to yesterday, Lin Qifei's aura was clearly stronger. Although it couldn't be compared to a normal person, it was much better than his initial condition. Chu Luiyue nodded and injected a stream of force into his body. Then she followed the same procedure as yesterday and did it again. Lin Qifei's expression was one of forbearance. Throughout the entire process he did not let out a single cry of pain. However, his complexion became even paler, and many fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He looked very miserable. Lin Tianfeng, who was watching from the side, was scared witless. "So, this is how Dugu treats Qifei?" Yesterday he had left early and didn't see it. Today when he suddenly saw it, his heart almost jumped out of his throat. There were even a few times when Lin Tianfeng's heart ached too much. If it weren't for Qifei's constant signals to calm him down, he would have opened his mouth to shout for them to stop. This time, Chu Luiyue helped him clean up some of the strange things that had accumulated in his yuan meridian. To her, this was also a huge drain. When it was over, she let out a long sigh. "All right. I'll go refine medicine first. Fourth young master, you can rest and recuperate for now." Lin Qifei saw that she looked a little tired, so he asked, "What's wrong?" "Miss Dugu, you also seem to need a good rest. I've been sick for many years, so a little more won't make a difference. Why don't we wait for Miss Dugu to recover before continuing?" Lin Tianfeng expressed his agreement. "That's right. Although I'm not a celestial physician, I know that celestial physicians often expend a lot of energy when refining pills. Miss Dugu, you see, thank you for your concern, Patriarch Lin and Fourth Princess. I know what I'm doing and won't do anything rash." Chu Luiyue stood up and smiled. "More than anyone else, I hope that this pill refinement will succeed on the first try. Naturally, I will make preparations. The two of you don't need to worry. However, there's one thing. This pill refinement will take about a day and a night. I hope Patriarch Lin can help protect me." If it were someone else, they most likely wouldn't have the guts to directly ask Lin Tianfeng to protect them. Generally speaking, only the most powerful 9th-grade celestial physician in the clan could ask Lin Tianfeng for help. But in the face of Chu Luiyue's bold proposal, Lin Tianfeng agreed without hesitation. No problem. As long as she could take care of Qifei in the end, this was nothing. "I've already ordered someone to arrange a room for Miss Dugu to use for pill refinement. It's not far from here. Also, I wonder if Miss Dugu still needs something like a medicinal cauldron?" Lin Tianfeng asked tentatively. "Our Lin family happens to have a collection of medicinal cauldrons that are very useful for pill refinement. Miss Dugu, thank you for your kindness, Patriarch Lin. but I have my own medicinal cauldron so I don't need to borrow yours. Chu Luiyue declined with a smile. Lin Tianfeng was slightly disappointed. Then, all right. Duguyu was an outsider, so her medicinal cauldron shouldn't be any better. He had wanted to provide her with a better medicinal cauldron so that she could refine pills more smoothly, but he didn't expect her to be so uninterested. However, Lin Tianfeng knew that most celestial physicians were a little arrogant. Since she had said so, there was no need to persuade her anymore. Then Chu Luiyue took the medicinal herbs to the room specially set aside for her pill refinement. At the door, Lin Tianfeng looked at Dugu Mabao and asked, Miss Dugu, since you want to focus on pill refinement, why don't we take care of this child for the time being? Dugu Mabao frowned. Chu Luiyue hurriedly said, Thank you, Patriarch Lin, but this child is afraid of strangers. Let him go in with me. Lin Tianfeng found it a little strange. Wouldn't such a small child be a hindrance if he went in? But it just so happens that Debao is preparing to start learning celestial physician. It's not a problem to let him follow along. Chu Luiyue added. Lin Tianfeng choked. If he wanted to learn from his mother, there was nothing for outsiders to say. At this time, Lin Jifei, who was next to him, also opened his mouth. Since Miss Dugu insists, then, let's do it. Chu Luiyue was relieved. She bowed to the two of them, turned around and walked in with Dugu Mabao. After the two of them disappeared, Lin Tianfeng looked at Lin Qifei and sighed. Jifei, you seem to have a lot of trust in them. Lin Qifei glanced at the tightly shut doors and windows, and a slight ripple appeared in the depths of his clear eyes. She's just a pitiful girl with a child alone. Lin Tianfeng felt suffocated in his heart. He knew that Jifei was like this because he thought of him when he saw them. Actually, what happened to your mother back then really had nothing to do with you. Besides, it's been so long. Jifei, you don't have to take it to heart. Lin Tianfeng said with some hesitation. Besides, you didn't have a child all these years because of you. Are you still unwilling to let go of your prejudice against her? Hearing this, Lin Qifei's indifferent and calm expression finally showed a trace of fluctuation. His pale lips curled up slightly as he looked at Lin Tianfeng, a faint smile appearing on his face. The sunlight shone on his face, making him look like a piece of glass that was both bright and fragile. Whatever father says, it's what it is. You, Lin Tianfeng choked and was about to say something when he heard a slightly nervous and urgent female voice. Master. Not good. Chapter 1039. It was Lu Yuer's voice. Lin Tianfeng looked up and saw Lu Yu hurrying in from outside the courtyard, her face full of anxiety. When she reached the courtyard gate, she was stopped by a servant, as expected. Mistress, please wait. Lu Yuer's already anxious mood worsened when she was stopped. She was the mistress of the Lin family, but she didn't even have the right to enter this small courtyard. She hadn't been able to take a single step in all these years. Because Lin Qifei lived here. The entire Lin family couldn't enter at will. Even Lin Tianfeng had to send someone to notify them. However, the other members of the Lin family had more or less entered, but she hadn't been allowed even once. Everyone in the Lin family knew that Lin Qifei didn't like her as a stepmother. Even if she had become the mistress of the Lin family, he still didn't care about her. But no matter how much hatred she felt, Lu Yu wouldn't show it in front of these people. So she stood obediently outside the door and looked inside with a face full of anxiety. Soon Lin Tianfeng came over. What's wrong? What's the hurry? Lin Tianfeng pulled Lu Yu aside as he walked. Lu Yuer's heart felt stifled again, but she didn't show it. She only grabbed Lin Tianfeng's arm anxiously with tears in her eyes. Master, Yu rarely asks you for anything, but this time Yu really has no other choice, she cried pitifully, and Lin Tianfeng's heart ached for her. Don't cry. What's going on? I'll definitely help you. Only then did Lu Yuer wipe away her tears and say intermittently, It's about Lu Yi. A trace of impatience flashed across Lin Tianfeng's face when he heard this name. He's really been bullied this time. Lu Yu complained tearfully. Lin Tianfeng said indifferently, He has always been the one bullying others. When has anyone ever been able to bully him? Lu Yuer knew that he never liked Lu Yi, so when Lu Yi made trouble, she tried her best to suppress it and not let it spread here. But it was different this time. Master, you don't know, but several of Lu Yi's subordinates were beaten half to death this time. Their tendons were also cut off. They were stuffed into boxes and sent to Lu Yi's door. If this wasn't a threat, then what was it? Lin Tianfeng's expression changed slightly. Really? There were probably not many people in the entire Heavenly Cave Cliff who would dare to do such a thing. Why would Yuer lie to you? He came just now and his clothes were stained with blood. Lu Yuer's eyes flashed with resentment. She really hated the people who treated Lu Yi like this behind his back. So this time she came to complain tearfully. Things had turned out like this. If she couldn't help Lu Yi, then in the future, many people in Dongtian Cliff would ridicule and abuse him. Lin Tianfeng frowned. Do you know who the person is? Lu Yuer was stunned for a moment and hurriedly said, This? I didn't have time to ask. But the person who dares to do this in Dongtian Cliff must not be a simple person. In Yuer's opinion this time, maybe it's because of the Lin family maybe? Although Lu Yi was not a member of the Lin family, who didn't know his relationship with the Lin family? Daring to be so ruthless to him, they obviously didn't put the Lin family in their eyes. Wasn't acting wildly in the Lin family's territory a provocation to the Lin family? Lin Tianfeng frowned when he heard this. Master, why don't you let Lu Yi come over now and talk to you personally? Lu Yuer asked tentatively. Lin Tianfeng pondered for a moment, looked back and shook his head. Not today. Why? I have something to do today. Tell him to come back tomorrow. Although Lu Yi's matter was not small, it was not as important as Zhifei's elixir. Duguyu asked him to help protect her, so he must not go back on his words. Otherwise, if something went wrong, who could bear the responsibility? Hearing Lin Tianfeng's words, Lu Yuer almost guessed something. She couldn't help but take a look inside. You're busy with Zhifei's matter? Lin Tianfeng didn't hear anything wrong in her voice and just nodded. You go back first, just wait for a day. Tomorrow at this time bring Lu Yi over. With that, he turned around and planned to go in. Master, Lu Yuer shouted unwillingly. Lin Tianfeng glanced at her and pondered for a moment. Why don't you send someone to investigate first and see what's going on? I'll deal with this matter tomorrow. After saying that, he ignored Lu Yuer and walked straight in. Lu Yuer looked at his back gradually disappearing and slowly clenched her fists. Her delicately manicured nails dug deep into her palms, stinging. She suddenly woke up, took a deep breath and turned to leave. What? He won't see me? Hearing Lu Yuer's words, Lu Yi suddenly jumped out of his chair. I've already been bullied to the point of being on top of my head. How can he still be so indifferent? Even if he doesn't do it for me, he has to consider the Lin family's reputation? What are you shouting for? Lu Yuer was also very irritated and reprimanded. You're not his son, he naturally won't care about you. In the past 2 days, a celestial physician came and said that she could cure Lin Qifei's illness. Of course he's nervous. Lu Yi couldn't help but sneer. It's been so long, how many celestial physicians have come? He still hasn't given up, ha. That Lin Qifei is just waiting for death. Maybe this time on the way there, Lu Yuer gave him a warning glare. Although this is my residence, it's still the Lin family. Watch your words. If you have the time, why don't you tell me in detail who's so bold to do these things? Lu Yi was a little guilty. In the end, he wanted to rob the other party first. Lu Yuer had reminded him several times before not to be so blatant. If she knew, I'm not sure now, the other party didn't leave any clues? He lowered his eyes and said vaguely. Lu Yuer was very irritated. It's useless. Then let's wait first. It would be much easier to wait for the Lin family to investigate. Although Lu Yi was sullen, he didn't dare to say anything more and could only agree. Inside the room, Chu Luiyue first set up a barrier around the room. After making sure that the aura and fluctuations here wouldn't spread outside, he summoned the heavenly square cauldron. Are you really going to use this thing? Dugu Mabao saw the transparent cauldron and his eyes flashed slightly. This is my biggest reliance at the moment. Chu Luiyue shrugged. Otherwise, I'm not confident that I can refine the pill in one try. Dugu Mabao pondered for a moment. You're really willing to be able to get the pill refined by Chu Luiyue with the heavenly square cauldron? Lin Qifei was also very lucky. Chu Luiyue curled his lips. It's not a loss to use this pill in exchange for the opportunity to attend the birthday banquet of His Highness Saint. Digression, Rong Xiu, my wife seems to be scolding me. February, get rid of the seams. Rong Xiu? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.